Got a brand new crash to report. It is 65 northbound right after Wedgwood Avenue. That is going to be just south of downtown. And 65 northbound at Rosa Parks Boulevard. Metro Police still working a crash at that location. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 10/10/24, and you're listening to The Drive on this 10th day of October, where we have abundant sunshine and 77 degrees, another gorgeous day on tap. Although the nights are getting a little cooler, but the daytime is really pleasant. Let's see, 26 days to the election. We'll get to that in just a bit, give you all the latest information about 2024 election. But I want to start by talking about the situation with the hurricane. It is true that, they got 3 million people without power. And 11 people have died thus far in the Sunshine State as a result of Hurricane Milton. And I don't want to downplay that it was a serious storm. It was a serious storm, but as these things go, well, I think the governor had it right.
The storm was significant, but thankfully this was not the worst case scenario.
Not the worst case scenario. What really happened here, I mean, we had some real concerns about Tampa St. Pete and what would happen if the storm surge went into Tampa Bay. The lucky break in this storm that kept things from really being, a lot worse than they turned out to be, was that the storm ducked a little bit to the south. And so instead of pushing water into Tampa Bay and causing all kinds of mayhem, it did exactly the opposite. Here's the governor again.
This storm came in the way it did. The dirty side of the storm was kind of Sarasota, Charlotte area. And then the northern side of the storm, it actually, instead of doing storm surge into Tampa Bay, it sucked it out. But the northern side of the storm had a lot of precipitation. I mean, they were just getting water dumped on them. So whereas Helene created a lot of storm surge in that part of the state, this one didn't do that there, but it created like inland flooding. And so you see that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. You also got an awful lot of water dumped in the center and northern parts of the state on the northern side of the storm. So we're going to continue to respond for those as appropriate.
Yeah, so 3 million without power, 11 dead. Sarasota County had an 8 to 10 foot storm surge. The Tropicana Stadium lost its roof. I mean, sort of a fabric roof to begin with, but it is just in tatters now. And, you have to also take into consideration that there were, I think at the last count I had, 45 potential tornadoes that happened as a result of some of the supercells that were in the outer bands as they lashed the state of Florida. Went across and exited, and it's now out in the Atlantic Ocean, headed due east, and it's not going to be doing anybody any more harm. It's, as they say, a storm for the fishes at this point. So many people are looking at this thing, and they're going, maybe, there's two schools of thought here. Well, more than that, actually. But let's talk about two major, schools of thought out there. There are those who believe that, the government is controlling the weather and that somehow, this is some kind of evil plot by the government. I don't know why anybody thinks the government would want to, create hurricanes. I don't get that. But, I mean, there are people who believe this. That lasers are being used, apparently. to create superstorms. And then you got I think the other equally wacky group out there says that, well, this is all the climate change and the earth is heating up. And the governor, sort of said, you know what? What we're seeing here is very typical for the state of Florida. And he sort of discounts both arguments.
Yeah, I just think people should put this in perspective. They try to take different things that happen with tropical weather and act like it's something. There's nothing new under the sun. This is something that the state has dealt with for its entire history, and it's something that we'll continue to deal with. I think what's changed is we've got 23 million people. A storm that hits is likely to hit more people and property than it would have 100 years ago, and so the potential for that damage has grown. But what's also changed is our ability to do the prevention, to pre-stage the assets. I mean, we never did the pre-staging of power assets until I became governor. Now people expect that, but that wasn't what was done in the past. That's why people would be out with power for 3 weeks when we'd have hurricanes. We thought that that's not good. Now we have to pay to get these guys to come in, but my view is the quicker you get everyone hooked up, the better off the economy is going to be anyway. So why don't we just do that? Having the different search and rescue, having a state guard, all these different things are just bringing different tools to the fight, and it allows us to respond more effectively. So if we had the tools that we had in 1928 to fight an Ian or to fight some of these, you would have had higher death tolls. There's no question about that.
Speaking of history, sir, how many storms formed as rapidly as they have between Helena and Milton?
Oh, I mean, I think most people remember 2004, right? Where we had seemed like you had them every other week in 2004. Then there's also time period, we had from 2006 to 16, we had no hurricanes at all in Florida.
Just stop and think about that for a moment. For 10 years, 2006 to 2016, there were no hurricanes that hit the state of Florida. When you hear people talk about, we're seeing things, it's getting worse and worse every year. You have to stop and look that sometimes there are long dry spells. Sometimes there are busy spells. These things ebb and flow.
There's also been times where we had a lot. The 1940s, we were getting hit a lot. Now more recently, we've had a spate of more. So that's just kind of the nature of it. But this really does. It has a lot of similarities to 2004 in terms of the season.
Yeah, Governor, a lot of folks, particularly quite a few who trust you and look to you for information, are possibly engaging in some misinformation about some entity controlling the weather. Can you take this opportunity to denounce that misinformation and set the record straight for folks who believe someone is controlling the weather?
Look, if I could control the weather, I would do, 78 and sunny year round. Now we get that, a lot in Florida, coming up in the months, but there would be no reason to ever do. So look, and this is on both sides. You kind of have some people think government can do this, and then others think it's all because of fossil fuels. The reality is what we see. There's precedent for all this in history. Like, it is hurricane season. You are going to have tropical weather. We hope that, a lot of the tropical weather are fish storms out in the Atlantic that never impact us. The reality is anything that gets in the Gulf of Mexico, it's got to hit something. Maybe it hits Mexico, maybe it hits Louisiana, but Florida's one, especially if it's moved when they bend east. We're the ones that are going to do. So like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. These are natural occurrences. We will deal with tropical weather for as long as we're Floridians.
Yep, and that is the way Floridians look at it. I mean, I don't mean to make light of the fact that I know there are people out there who really believe some of the things that I think that I think that the global warming people to some degree are delusional. I think if you look at climate change, well, climate always changes. If you look over the history of the Earth, there are warm times, there are cooler times, there are warm times, there are cooler times, and so I've never been one who really believed in the grand scheme about the global warming. The climate changes. I remember looking at some historical data about the Nile River Valley. and Egypt, which at one point was a very largely green country, and it's not now. Climates change. Things do change over time. And on the other side of the equation, I know there are going to be people, honestly, when I say this, that are yelling at their radio. They're going to scream and they're going to holler at me, and they're going to say, oh, well, you haven't seen the video that I've seen. They believe that somebody is out there controlling the weather. You know, and I guess they think it's the government. I'm not real sure. What would be the purpose of controlling the weather and causing hurricanes? I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. But, you know, look, if you believe it, knock yourself out. I'm not going to be there with you on that one. So what we have now here is a hurricane that is going to cost, well, it's going to be, billions of dollars of damage across the state. There's no doubt about that. And I don't mean to downplay it because, if you're one of those people who really got hit by Hurricane Milton and really lost it all, I would tell you, I'm really sorry. I hate that you had such a loss. And, 11 people dying is not anything to sneeze at, but considering what could have happened, this was a better outcome than I think we expected. FEMA will move in, and I expect that the state of Florida is going to have the same reaction to FEMA being there that the people in North Carolina and East Tennessee have right now about FEMA. They're not going to be all that impressed, and I do think that is a story in its own right. In that, in an election year, when you're the incumbent and you're the vice president of the Biden-Harris administration, and you have a natural disaster, and then FEMA seems to come up short, as many of the reports from North Carolina and East Tennessee suggest that they are, then that's going to have a political impact as well in the next 26 days when we all go to the polls. So I think there is a political story that will be developing as well, and again, we dodged to some degree a bullet. Damage, yes. Billions, maybe. A lot of people without electricity, yes. 11 people died, but you know what? I had a piece of property not too far from the beach in Florida. And when you take on that investment, it is always a likelihood that, you're going to have to rebuild your house. I was lucky in that I had a house for 15 years right on the Gulf of, a block off the Gulf of Mexico, and I never had a direct hit, thank goodness. But I mean, it is part of the mindset of people. When you live on the beach, there's a possibility that you're going to have to rebuild that house at some point. It's why storm insurance is so danged expensive if you can get it. So there we have it. A little bit of good news, not completely good news, but better news than we expected to be telling you today about the state of Florida and Hurricane Milton. Hurricane Helene still, oh man, the people over there are still suffering to a large degree. I saw one of the most interesting stories on Facebook today that they are actually, among all other things, using pack mules, like in the Old West, to carry supplies up into the mountains where people are still desperately in need of them. Last time I checked, FEMA doesn't have any pack mules, so these are volunteers who are going in there and doing the good work. And FEMA largely doesn't seem to be present in the way that I think the White House thinks that it is. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Hurricane Milton update. Governor Lee announces a new program to help East Tennessee hurricane flooding victims. And Sean Diddy Combs' trial is set. We'll tell you where he is going to be waiting for it to start. All this and more at 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And there in the news closet, the bearded wonder, Ken Weaver. Good afternoon, Ken. Good
afternoon, buddy.
Yeah, I bet you wish you were outside today, because I'm telling you, it is glorious outside.
It is nice, man. I went out on the balcony earlier.
You know, this is I think my favorite time of year.
Yes.
You know, I just before I like a little cool at night, and nice mellow days in the 70s. Mm-hmm. That's good. Jeff Melanoff is there in the control room with Chris Webber, who will be back on Monday, still off. I don't know. He's slacking off somewhere. But good to have you in the chair, Jeff. You've done a great job.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and we expect that the level of work will continue through this program and tomorrow.
Yes, I got 2 days left to not mess it up.
Okay, well, we're going to be watching. We're going to be watching. Inflation data came in here today, and inflation is up 2.4% over where it was last year. 1 year ago today, things were 2.4% cheaper than they are now on average. But see, that's not really the way you should look at it. I think in this election environment that we're in right now, you have to say, okay, well, how has inflation treated me during the Biden years, the years that he's been in office, from the time he took his oath of office in January of 2021 till today? Well, I happen to have that information for you, so you can be well apprised. First of all, let's talk about the price of gasoline. The price of gasoline today is about 38% higher than it was when Joe Biden took the oath of office. Electricity is 31.3% higher than when Joe Biden took office. Fuel oil, which is not something that we look at a lot here in our part of the world, but in the northeast part of the country, fuel oil is used for heating, and fuel oil is up 37.4% since Joe Biden took office. If you get on a plane, it is 24.5% more expensive to do that now than when Joe Biden took office. Groceries overall up 22% since Joe Biden became president. Eggs, wow, this one is amazing. I don't do the shopping in our home, so I probably don't notice this kind of stuff. But eggs are up nearly 70% since Joe Biden became the president, 69.2%. That's a lot. Rent, overall, if you rent a home, it costs you about 23% more than it did when Joe Biden raised his hand in 2021. Transportation, it's really gone up for you a lot, 31% overall. This one, I just looked at mine and I'm going, wow. Car insurance. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed how much your car insurance is costing you these days? It is up 56.5% since Joe Biden took office.
Yeah, we have a teenager driving.
So, yeah, I bet it's even worse for you. All told, if you average everything together in one big old lump and you say, well, so on average, how much is stuff in my life costing me compared to when Joe Biden took the oath of office? Overall, it's 20.5% inflation. Now, that means that your prices on average on everything have gone up by a fifth. That's a lot. Did your wages go up? No, they did not. In fact, in real terms, your real average wages went down during that same time period, 3.4%. So, your buying value has gone down and costs have gone up, and you're not keeping up with the rate of inflation by any stretch of the imagination. So, when you're paying those bills and you say, why is it so hard to make ends meet? It's because, you probably are not keeping up. The little raises that you may or may not have gotten are not keeping you up with the rate of inflation over time. That is pretty astonishing stuff. So, people, you have to ask yourself, are you better off now than when Donald Trump was president? And I don't think financially anybody can answer that question in the positive. Very few. Meanwhile, just a quick note here. Social Security announced that the COLA increase for 2025 will be up 2.5%. They will increase starting in 2025 2.5%. 30 minutes now. 30 minutes past the hour. Time for the news now on Super Talk.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Hurricane Milton update. Both coasts of Florida and everywhere in between dealing with widespread damage and power outages. At least 12 are dead now. Governor Ron DeSantis on the focus.
Ensuring that fuel is flowing Hopefully we get our gas stations and big box stores and everything open very quickly. I'd imagine that will likely happen, and just get people back on their feet.
Meanwhile, President Biden is urging Congress to head back to Washington immediately and pass more disaster funding. Officials in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee continue to recover bodies nearly 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene. TEMA confirming 17 are dead now in East Tennessee. And Fox News says the Craig family, which lives in an area known as Craigtown in Fairview, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, they lost 11 members of their family to a mudslide. And Governor Bill Lee today says there's a new program available to help people recovering in East Tennessee. Tennesseans can apply for a share of $100 million of no-interest loans. There's a 2025 trial date in the sex trafficking and abuse case against Sean Diddy Combs, the music mogul appearing in court today. Aaron Katersky was there.
It was a request from the defense to get a trial started as soon as possible. So the government conceded May 5th is when Combs is going to stand trial. Prosecutors said that trial should last about a month, but they did say it is an ongoing investigation. They did raise the possibility of a superseding indictment, so additional charges could affect the length of the trial.
Combs is accused of leading a criminal enterprise that sexually abused and exploited women. He has denied the charges. He is going to stay in jail until his trial. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, the slowdowns are in effect at the usual places this time of day, but we've got some other hurdles to deal with. This one is going to be north of downtown heading into Nashville. Jolton, to be precise. An overturned vehicle is blocking part of 24 eastbound right after Whites Creek Pike. Got a crash 65 northbound at Rosa Parks Boulevard, and then 65 northbound south of downtown, this one right after Wedgwood Avenue. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive on this beautiful October day. It is 10/10/24. It was exactly 4 years ago on this very day that I married Cabana Wife.
Ah, congratulations.
That's
and
right.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. We got married on 10/10 of 2020.
That's a great couple
10:10
right there.
in the morning. 10:10 at 10:10 2020.
You did that on purpose.
Yeah, we did that. We actually planned that.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, and we almost didn't make it by exactly 10:10 because my stepson, my bonus son, forgot to bring the ring down off the mountain.
Oh.
And we had to go back and get it.
And that's kind of important.
But we made it by the skin of our teeth. We made it at 10:10 a.m. on 10/10/2020.
Congratulations, man.
I mean, boy, did I make a good decision on that day.
Yes, sir.
One of the best decisions of my life. And so, what are we going to do tonight? I don't know, eat a bologna sandwich or something. Really no plans at all whatsoever. That we have this story out of the Justice Department about this 27-year-old Afghani national named Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi, arrested in Oklahoma City. He had apparently tried to buy AK-47s and ammunition from an undercover law enforcement officer. He has been facing charges of terrorism. He wanted to carry out a large attack on Election Day. We're finding out, a little bit more about this guy and his background. And it apparently he worked for the CIA at one point overseas in Afghanistan, came into this country. And, when people came into this country, we were told, during the Afghanistan withdrawal, oh, don't you worry. Oh, it's going to be fine. We're going to take everybody who's coming in here from Afghanistan that we're bringing into the country on C-130 planes, and we're going to vet them very carefully. Yes, we're going to look at them. We're going to look at them real hard to make sure that they're good, solid people and they're not terrorists. We were told this time and time again. I mean, because you got to believe when you're bringing that many people into the country, and this is where ISIS and this is where Al Qaeda, and the Taliban all operate in Afghanistan. What are the loyalties of these people? And you don't need to worry. The Biden administration is all over this. Well, as another example of how the Biden administration completely screwed up the withdrawal from Afghanistan is this guy who wanted to carry out a major terror attack on Election Day. And who knows how many of the other ones who came into this country, really didn't get a good scrubbing from looking into their backgrounds. So this is coming up now at a White House briefing. The question was asked of Karine Jean-Pierre, what kind of vetting was done on this? And, they had real questions for the White House, as you might imagine. Watch Karine Jean-Pierre do the dance.
NBC is reporting that he was a security guard for the CIA before he came to the U.S. and that he passed 2 rounds of vetting. Does the administration believe there was adequate vetting?
So what I can say is I cannot comment on this directly because it is an active investigation.
Hold on a minute. You know what that is right there? We have a word for that in Texas where I come from. She can answer that question. She doesn't want to answer that question. Which, and that is, I just think I should just go ahead and say it. We know what when that happens, you know what we call that? She's being a real about it, if you ask me.
As you know, that the Department of Justice is currently moving forward with, so I'm going to be really careful. What I can say is every Afghan national who entered the U.S. was screened and vetted by intelligence, law enforcement, counterterrorism professionals, and with every new information that emerges, that an individual, if that individual could pose a threat to public safety, we take immediate action, and we take that action. And so not going to speak to this particular case, but I can speak more broadly, and that's the actions that we normally take. That's how we move forward. And the president has always been clear, protecting the American people will always be his top priority.
Yeah, well, that's always his top priority, except when it comes to letting people come across the border unvetted. So, there is Karine Jean-Pierre doing the little dance there in the White House briefing room. She doesn't want to answer the question. No, I can't. This is a case that is, still being looked at, and we have a prosecution to think about. So I can't talk about that, which is nonsense. There are things. The question was not about the individual. The question was about the vetting process that took place, and she just doesn't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing. And they don't want a big kerfuffle 26 days before the election. Alejandro Mayorkas, he's down in North Carolina because of what's going on there in North Carolina. And he was asked the question, and he sort of did the same dance.
This Afghan national who was working for the CIA in Afghanistan was arrested for planning an election day terror plot. He was brought to the U.S. after Afghanistan collapsed. Your agency says as part of the SIV program. The State Department is telling us he was not part of the SIV program, which had strenuous vetting. They say he was never issued an SIV or immigrant visa, and DHS paroled him into the U.S.
Wow, that's pretty good information right there.
They further expect the court document to be updated to reflect this from the DOJ side. So, Mr. Secretary, how was this man brought into the U.S.? What screening did he undergo? What did he apply for to get here?
We knocked the press corps, but that's a pretty damn good question. And watch what happens.
Jackie, I'm here in North Carolina. Communicating with the individuals who are still conducting search and rescue operations. Over 200 people have lost their lives in Hurricane Helene. We have reports that at least 10 individuals have lost their lives as a result of Hurricane Milton. I'd be very pleased to answer your question in a different setting, but we're here to talk about emergencies and the support that we can deliver to people in desperate need. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary, but we're getting conflicting answers from your agency and from the State Department about a man who was arrested for an election day terror plot. How do you not have those answers prepared?
I mean, she's right. I mean, this is a valid question. We're heading into an election. And we've been told by the FBI director that the terrorism threat matrix in this country is blinking not yellow but red. That, he's very, very worried. And luckily we got this guy before he could carry out, his intended plot to murder Americans on Election Day in some kind of big flashy attack and using AK-47s, sort of like what happened in Moscow, ISIS-K. It's the same kind of deal. And so, how is it that you cannot answer this burning question, which is at least as important to the rest of America as what you're doing there in North Carolina right now? Oh, but he doesn't think so. He's not going to answer the question.
Jackie, that's not what I said. What I said is I'd be pleased to discuss this issue at a different time, but I am here to speak about disasters that have impacted people's lives in real time, and that is the subject that I'm addressing today.
Let me tell you, if he had a topic that he wanted to answer a question on, it wouldn't matter that he happened to be in North Carolina. He would answer it.
Mr. Secretary, can you assure people that appropriate steps have been taken to secure the country against these kinds of threats? Because the outstanding question is whether this man was radicalized before the U.S. government brought him here or afterward.
Again, another great question.
And people should be concerned about that.
Jackie, your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers.
All right, we're going to go.
Well, we got to go. Out of here. Again, his unwillingness to answer deserves at least one. I'm telling you, it is just exactly that. So irritating when they play that little game. And other, that is sort of border-related news and immigrant-related news, 25 governors are demanding answers to find out exactly how many migrants have been flown into the United States directly. 25 Republican governors want to know how many illegal foreign nationals have been flown into their states by a Biden-Harris administration plan they argue is burdening their residents and creating an unsafe environment. Those being flown in have arrived through more than a dozen parole programs created by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The governors only inquired about one, the CHNV parole program created to fast-track previously inadmissible citizens from Cuba, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. According to the latest U.S. Customs and Border Protection data, 530,000 CHNV parolees were released into the country in the past year, in addition to 813,000 foreign nationals processed into the country from all over the world through the CBP One app. See, when they say, well, the border situation is better, it's not any better. They're just bringing them in a different way so that you can't notice it. There's no picture to get at the border, but it's the same amount. The 1.3 million inadmissibles released into the country among nearly 14 million illegal border crossers reported since fiscal 2021. And listen, I'm telling you, we don't know an awful lot about these people who are coming to our country. It is one thing you can understand if somebody who has is struggling to feed their family wants to come to America to get a job so that they can support their family. You sort of can understand that. They still, I think, should go through the process, and there are ways to do it legally. But, I'm not condoning the fact that they came across, but you can at least understand why they would want to do that. But a lot of these people are coming here from all over the world, not just, poor people from Mexico. These are people coming in from Africa, coming in from China, coming in from other places. And then we're flying in people from Afghanistan, and we're flying in people from Nicaragua and Honduras and Cuba. And they're coming into this country, and we don't know a lot about these people. And, since we've had this one incident involving somebody who wants to conduct a terror operation on Election Day, you got to wonder, how safe are we under this Biden administration plan of just letting anybody into the country? 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Question for you. Are your retirement assets structured to minimize taxes? Hard to believe, but many hardworking Americans just like you could be overpaying on taxes in retirement. You could be taxed on your IRA, your 401k, and any other tax-deferred retirement accounts. Beacon Capital Management is here to give you peace of mind. With the threat of massive tax increases just around the corner, your nest egg could be in trouble unless you take advantage of defensive tax-saving strategies now. Defend your hard-earned retirement savings by scheduling a free retirement tax reduction analysis today. No cost, no pressure, no obligation. If you've saved more than $250,000 for retirement, don't wait any longer. Schedule your free retirement tax reduction analysis from Beacon. Just call this number, 615-488-9303, or visit askbeaconnow.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly. who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
Hurricane Milton update. There is a message from Governor DeSantis to anyone planning on looting. President Biden claims there's not enough money to help small businesses recover. Sean Diddy Combs' trial date set, and a big bank pleads guilty. We'll tell you about it at 4 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, 57 minutes past the hour. Let's take a look at the markets. Well, they're all in the red today. Dow Jones Industrial's down 57. S&P is down 11. The NASDAQ is down 9.5. Just because we've been looking at it occasionally, let's take a look at what's going on with oil. It is up $2.32 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate crude, and a barrel of oil now sells for $75.57 a barrel. Gold is up as well, $21 today. An ounce of gold costs you $2,647. Let's check in with Ty Draper to talk about what's driving everything behind this. He's calling in from Beacon Capital Management. Good afternoon, Ty.
Yeah, hey, Brian. We talked about this earlier in the week, that the Fed report on CPI data, and all the indexes were fractionally lower today, reflecting the hotter than expected inflation data. The CPI rose by 20 basis points over last month instead of the 10 basis points predicted by analysts. And this data comes as concerns mount that the Fed may slow the pace of future cuts ahead of the central bank's first policy meeting and that monster cut that we got in September. And it looks like the likelihood of a cut in November has risen to about 80%. But, you know, the real data that I'm worried about is how many points the Vols hang on those Gators this weekend, Brian.
Well, all right, we'll check that as well. Thank you, Ty Draper. Appreciate it. It is now, by the way, remember, you can find out what Ty Draper and John Maxon and all the good people at Beacon can do to help you get ready for your retirement. Just go to the website, askbeaconnow.com. It is now 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now, a Hurricane Milton update. Both coasts of Florida and everywhere in between dealing with widespread damage and power outages. At least 12 are dead. Governor Ron DeSantis with a message to anyone thinking of looting.
I'm warning you, don't do that. If you loot, you will be held accountable. If you're doing things that violate the law, if you're going to try to take advantage of vulnerable people, we're going to throw the book at you.
Here in Tennessee, Governor Lee today announcing $100 million available for Tennesseans impacted by Hurricane Helene. They can apply for no-interest loans. President Biden claiming there isn't enough money to help small businesses recover from these storms.
President Biden urged lawmakers to return to Washington immediately and pass more disaster funding, warning that the Small Business Administration is close to exhausting its existing funds for disaster loans.
The SBA is pretty right at the edge right now. And I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on emergency needs immediately.
The president said he thinks Congress will need to soon address funding for long-term rebuilding in the Southeast after these back-to-back hurricanes, saying it's going to cost billions of dollars.
Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial for sex trafficking and abuse on May 5th of next year. The music mogul appearing in federal court in New York City today. Aaron Kontersky was there, telling us prosecutors anticipate the trial will last about a month, though it could be extended because the investigation is ongoing.
About 100 devices seized in raids of Diddy's homes last March, and then after his arrest in September, they're still going through the 100 electronic devices. They're having some trouble getting into all of them, but it gives you a sense of just how much evidence prosecutors already have as they begin to dig into this case.
Combs is accused of leading a criminal enterprise that sexually abused and exploited women, and he has denied those charges. He will stay in jail until his trial. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Yeah, checking the drive home right now. We got the usual slowdowns in effect, but extra hurdles, too, in the way of crashes. The big one, an overturned vehicle, 24 eastbound, right after Whites Creek Pike. That's in Jolton. Then just south of downtown, it looks like they have cleared that one up, 65 northbound after Wedgwood. But now we've got 65 northbound before Old Hickory Boulevard in Madison, and now 24 westbound at Haywood Lane. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock, hour number 2 of the drive on this 10th day of October 2024. Hope that you are with us. We're 26 days till the election. 26 days. Tick, 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 time running down. And you may be wondering, well, just how exactly are we doing 26 days down? And let me be the first to tell you that I watch this stuff probably a lot more than a lot of people do. And if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, you know, who's going to win this thing, Brian? And people do walk up and ask me that. And I 3 weeks ago, my standard answer is, man, TC, too close to call. I don't know who's going to win this thing. It could go either way. But in recent days, I've begun to see something happening out there. There is a trend that is developing. And, I know a lot of you don't like polls, and you tell me, Wilson, the polls doesn't matter. You know what? The polls can be wrong, but don't get me, don't get me started on all that. I could talk about that, I can argue it square around, but I can tell you this. You don't look at individual polls. You look at the trend. You look at the trend over time. Is the trend up? Is the trend down? Who's got the momentum at the proper time? And I've seen example after example after example that suggests to me that Trump has the momentum right now. I'll tell you somebody else who believes that. Mark Halperin, who is, he's pretty much a left-leaning pollster. But he's been talking about how Kamala Harris is now starting to look like she's in trouble in the battleground states.
What's happening now with Kamala Harris is this is an experiment. Can you win a short campaign with an untested candidate? And what I'm telling you is happening in private polling is she's got a problem now. Okay? It's not cheering for Trump. It's not predicting Trump will win. She's got a problem. Wall Street Journal has a story about Democrats really worried about the 3 Rust Belt states. We all know from our contacts in both campaigns that Pennsylvania is tough for her right now. And without Pennsylvania, there are paths, but there aren't many. There's no path without Wisconsin. So you see here, Tammy Baldwin's Senate campaign poll shows Harris down 3 in Wisconsin. Baldwin has her down 3. Not Baldwin has Harris down 3. You think of the 7 battleground states. Which ones is Harris in danger of losing? I would say Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. I'm not saying she'll lose all 6, but she's in danger. She could lose any of those 6, right? I mean, she could lose all 7, but Democrats will tell you they're worried about those 6. They're less worried about the 7th. Yeah. I don't know any Trump person who says they're worried about losing any of the 7. They don't know that they don't necessarily think they're the favorite in Michigan and Wisconsin, but they're not worried about losing it. Right. You don't hear from them, oh my goodness. What you hear is we're moving up. What the 3 of us are hearing, we're moving up in those 2. We're going to win. We're going to win the 3 Sunbelt states, and we're stronger in Pennsylvania than she is. That, to me, if the whole thing's about the Electoral College, you take any of the Rust Belt states away from her, it's very difficult for her to win. Very difficult. It's not mathematically impossible, but it probably won't happen if she loses any of them.
All right. So let me add to that. There is a new round of polling out today from the Hill / Emerson of the battleground states. And again, I think it looks pretty good for Trump. Pennsylvania, they have him up by 1 in Pennsylvania. In Michigan, they have it as a tie, but the Quinnipiac poll has it as Trump +4. Wisconsin, Hill Emerson has it as a tie, but there's a Q poll out that says Trump is up by 2 in Wisconsin. North Carolina, Trump up by 1. Georgia, Trump up by 1. Arizona, Trump up by 2. Nevada, Harris up by 2. All right, now in Georgia, by the way, there are 2 polls that have Trump up by 1. The Trafalgar poll is also out. So most of those have, the trend moving toward Trump. I mean, and it wasn't long ago where it was going the other way. Also, Marist has a poll out today. Florida, Trump up by 4. I think that's low, but okay. And they have Texas, Trump up by 7. And so there you go. That Cruz up by 4. He's not doing as well as Trump is in the state of Texas. It's a little tighter for him. So, then you look at, okay, general election numbers. Right now, if you average out all of the polls on realclearpolitics.com, you come out with an average of Harris leading in the general election poll by 2. Remember, popular vote doesn't mean anything because you can win the popular vote and still not win the Electoral College. And you have to look at where people were in the past at this particular time in the campaign. That's the better way to look at the general election number, right? All right, so bear with me here. If today Harris is up by 2 in the general election number, you have to see, well, where was Biden at this particular time in 2020? Well, Biden's was 8 points higher. He was at 10, plus 10 at this point in the campaign. So Harris is 8 points behind where Biden was. Remember, Biden won. Then you go back to 2016 when Trump won, right? How does Harris compare to Hillary Clinton? At this point in the campaign, averaged out polls, Hillary Clinton was at 5.8. That means that Harris is now 3.8, almost 4 points behind where Hillary Clinton was, and that was the year that Trump won. So she's historically not keeping up with Biden and not keeping up with Clinton in 2020 and 2016, respectively. All right, you got all that? I know it's a lot of data to throw at you, but I really do think that the end result here, if you want the bottom line here, is something is happening. Now, I will tell you, having been the person who's covered a lot of campaigns and have been watching these numbers for years, that what you normally see as we get down to the last days of a campaign is the undecideds break. And they break one way or the other. And it seems to me that what I'm seeing here is that people who are undecided are starting to break, and they're breaking toward Trump. And it's not hard to understand when you look at things like, how are you feeling about your pocketbook these days compared to when Trump was the president? That's the basic question. And then, you got Kamala, who just gave Trump probably his closing campaign message when she said this the other day.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Not a thing at all that comes to mind. Well, I think a lot of people look at Biden and they say he's a failed president. He hasn't been a good president at all. And if Kamala says that, basically what she's saying in that soundbite is, if you elect me your president, you're going to get 4 more years of the same. If they don't turn that into a 30-second campaign commercial, I'll eat my hat. That is the perfect campaign soundbite for the Trump people, not Kamala Harris, when she says.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Not a thing that comes to mind. Okay, so you think it was perfect, right? Well, I think you're in the minority view on that. RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, says the GOP is surging in many different ways. And let me tell you, I think he's got a good case to make here. Registration numbers among Republicans have increased, resulting in more momentum for 2024. Yesterday was the first day in history when we had more Republican absentee ballots returned than Democrats, Whatley said on the John Solomon Reports podcast. That is a very significant shift. The early voting numbers that we're seeing out of Virginia are very, very striking. According to local reports, early voting in the state of Virginia is up 38% compared to the 2020 election. And some numbers are showing that about 574,000 voters, mostly in red-leaning districts, have voted early. Hey, that is a good sign. Whatley's also said the registration numbers among Republicans have increased, resulting in more momentum for 2024. We have 1 million more registered Republicans in Florida today than we do Democrats. It's amazing. We've cut the Democrat majority in half in terms of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Ohio. We're seeing huge gains that the Republicans are continuing to make there. Republicans have also filed lawsuits in certain states on the ground of election integrity, and there have been some wins. We just won a lawsuit in Michigan that will force Jocelyn Benson to enforce basic mail ballot safeguards ahead of November 5th. We just won a lawsuit in New Hampshire to ensure that voter ID is the law of the land for this election. So they are winning. They are winning some of these lawsuits, and they are making real inroads and getting more Republicans registered. The one that's sort of a secret, they were apparently out there working the Amish in Pennsylvania in a big way. And I forget how many hundred, I think it was 57,000 more registered voters in the middle part of the state. And you need people in the middle part of the state to overcome what happens in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania, the swingiest of all the swing states. Donald Trump is working harder than Kamala Harris is. In September, Trump held 21 public campaign events, including remarks, rallies, press conferences, and town halls. Harris, 13. Walz had 7. So Trump did more than Harris and Walz together. On top of Trump's jam-packed campaign schedule, his running mate, J.D. Vance, held 14 events in the month of September. These tallies do not include brief campaign retail stops and appearances without remarks. But, I mean, what you have here is Trump out there rocking and rolling, making himself available, doing the rallies, and Harris, not so much. I mean, look, look back at past stories about Kamala Harris. This is the rap on Kamala. She's lazy. She doesn't work very hard. She doesn't like to put in the time. And so she's also, afraid to get out there and do interviews, which I think is hurting her campaign. And when she did the 60-minute interview, I got to tell you, the 60-minute interview, as I look back on it, Bill Whitaker asked some great questions. And if you watch that interview in its entirety, what you came away with was a feeling, here's somebody trying to duck and dodge and not answer straight, level questions that any voter might have. So that wasn't a real win for her as well. I'll have more in just a moment. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. You need to let the team at Restoration Wellness help you achieve your health goals. Restoration Wellness is a leader in weight loss management in Wilson County. Call the Restoration Wellness team today at this number, 615-470-8124, or visit them at their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com, to book a consultation today. At some point in the process, you will meet my friends Carly and Jamie, who will take good care of you like you're part of the family. Be a part of the more than 1,000 patients who've already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program there. And I am one of them. I went back and looked at my records, and I'm down 33 pounds. I'm telling you, it is working for me. Weight loss can increase your energy levels, improve your quality of sleep, and enhance your overall health. They have customizable treatment plans. They will ask you about your needs, your lifestyle, and your goals, and then they'll come up with a plan that works for that. Whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. Learn about the newest techniques in weight loss management. Go to their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Got an update on rescue operations across Florida after Hurricane Milton and a recovery effort update from Hurricane Helene here in East Tennessee coming up at 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive. We're in the middle of our 2024 report here, and I have so much information to share that I have to go 2 segments, not one, and I get two segments for the price of one. That's the kind of bargain you get when you listen to this program. I want to talk about the Senate. This from Newsmax. Republicans appear poised to capture a majority in the U.S. Senate during next month's general election, according to the latest polling from the New York Times and Siena College. Now, the first thing you got to know about the Senate situation is West Virginia. Okay, West Virginia, an incredibly red state. Joe Manchin was a guy who, as a Democrat, now an independent, was always able to defy sort of the odds. People liked Joe Manchin, and they voted for him. But he's retiring. He's not running for re-election, and it is expected almost certainly that we'll pick up West Virginia as a Republican seat. All right, that's number one. Number two, you got to know about Montana. You have John Tester there, and according to some of the polling that's been done, Montana Democrat Senator John Tester trails Tim Sheehy, a Republican businessman and a former Navy SEAL, by 8 points in Montana. So there, I would say we have a really good chance of picking up Montana. So that's two. All right. Then the question is, do Democrats have any opportunities to take away Republican seats? Doesn't look that way. You got Texas, Ted Cruz. They've really come at him hard. I mean, really come at him hard. And he's fighting for his life right now. But he's ahead 48-44. So he's got a 4-point lead on Colin Allred. That's that's a little behind where Trump is, because Trump is leading by 7 points in the Lone Star State. So they are coming after Ted Cruz, but so far I don't think they've caught him. You got Rick Scott in Florida. He's up 9 points over his Democrat opponent. So it does look like with the United States Senate, it will become a Republican body, which I think is a very, very good thing. House of Representatives, why, I don't have a lot of hope that we'll hold on to the House. I hope we do. Maybe, Trump's coattails will be longer than we expected, and that will happen. But it's going to be close. Then there's this story. Non-citizens caught voting in the United States election. Here's how they did it. It tells the story of Eloy Alberto Zayas Berrier, who was part of the Mariel boat lift that brought 125,000 Cubans to the United States back in 1980. He's been in a bizarre legal limbo ever since. He can't qualify for U.S. citizenship, and Cuba has refused to take him back, so he's in the United States. He does not have a green card. He is decidedly not a citizen. But that did not stop him from showing up at an early voting location in North Carolina on November 5th of 2016. He registered, claimed to be a citizen, and cast a ballot all on the same day. Mr. Zayas said he was accompanied by a friend who was planning to vote. He said the poll worker encouraged him to sign up and vote as well. He showed his government-issued work permit as identification. The poll worker filled out a form for Mr. Zayas, who cannot read English, and he registered, predictably, as a Democrat. To hear the fact-checkers, Mr. Zayas is rarer than a lightning strike. They say non-citizens don't vote in U.S. elections because they have too much to lose. Former President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson disagree. In a high-profile meeting last month, the two men found common ground in declaring non-citizen voting a serious threat to ballot integrity. Mr. Johnson, in particular, said illegal immigrants allowed into the U.S. by President Biden's border chaos are showing up at government offices to sign up for benefit and services, and they are also encouraged to sign up to vote. Neither side can stay with certainty whether that is a common or rare, but it's in a series of criminal cases in North Carolina shows the problem is undeniable. It's happening, folks. And it's incredibly difficult to find and spot in advance. And, you know, look, there's about, and depending on which state you live in, there are myriad ways to find yourself there as an illegal citizen, ready to cast a vote on Election Day. And almost impossible to weed this out if somebody lies about their citizenship status. It is 31 minutes now past the hour. Time for the news.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. And right now we are monitoring a story out of Colorado where multiple people are trapped underground after an equipment failure in a Colorado mine. Officials say these folks were part of a tour group and that they became stuck near the bottom of Molly Kathleen Mine in Cripple Creek around 1 o'clock Mountain Time today. This mine, which is about 1,000 feet deep, is a popular tourist destination. Officials say there are injuries. Multiple agencies, including search and rescue teams, are responding to this incident with heavy equipment to hopefully get these people out of this mine. Right now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says authorities are engaged in post-Hurricane Milton operations across his state.
We've got a lot of rescue craft operational. Hundreds of rescuers are engaged in over 125 missions in 26 counties. Some of that's in conjunction with the local law enforcement and fire and other first responders.
12 dead in Florida. And today, as far as Hurricane Helene recovery efforts go in East Tennessee, Governor Lee announced a new $100 million emergency loan program for affected counties and individuals to make repairs. Money News, Michelle Franzen.
Stocks tumbled today after the latest economic reports painted a mixed picture of the U.S. economy, with inflation cooling, but likely not enough to support another large cut to interest rates. The Dow losing 58 points, the S&P 12, and the NASDAQ down 10 points.
That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, in addition to the usual drive home slowdowns, we've got an overturned vehicle, 24 eastbound after Whites Creek Pike in Jolton. In Madison, 65 northbound, right before Old Hickory Boulevard, there's a crash blocking the right shoulder. In Laverne, 24 westbound after Old Hickory Boulevard south, and then 24 westbound at Bell Road. We've got a crash. 24 westbound at the I-40, exit 52A. And then an injury accident now, Nolensville Pike at McCall Street. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, one thing that really makes Genesis Diamonds stand out from other jewelry stores is the education that you get. These are not clerks behind the counter. They're seasoned pros. They know everything there is to know about diamonds, and they will take the time to teach you in a way that is transparent, informative, useful. They'll even teach you how to buy like a dealer buys. They will show you the inside secrets of the diamond industry. They will show you how diamonds are priced and graded on the world market and how you can maximize your budget. They will also teach you all about lab-grown diamonds and how you need to be very, very careful where and how you buy them. All this is done in a relaxed, no pressure, no expectation kind of atmosphere. They know most guys don't know much about diamonds, so they're committed to teaching you, not selling you. Then, when you're ready, Genesis will give you access to one of the largest selections of GIA-certified diamonds in America. They will let you see 10, 15, 20 diamonds in your price range, side by side, so you can make an intelligent decision. I'm telling you, if you're diamond shopping, this is the place to go. It's a no-brainer. The education you want, the selection you need, the price you deserve, zero risk, zero pressure. Genesis Diamonds voted best jewelry store and best place to buy an engagement ring 10 years in a row. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
It is 39 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on this beautiful, gorgeous 78 degrees. And you just couldn't ask for a nicer afternoon. Abundant sunshine. But, our nights are getting a little chilly. I'm officially in the process now moving over the long sleeve shirts, and taking the short sleeve shirts and putting them away. It's sad. It's a sad moment in my house when that happens. But nonetheless, that's what we're doing. And look, we've got a lot going on here. A reminder that we'll be talking about a lot about elections again in the 6 o'clock hour. Let me also say, while I have just a moment here, if you haven't heard the news, we are really proud of our Dan Mandis. Dan Mandis just won a Marconi Award as the best large market personality in the country. And he went to New York City and won it, and we couldn't be more happy for Dan Mandis because that's a real feather in his cap. I tell you, Dan Mandis is one of the hardest working guys that I've ever known in this business. He gets up. I don't know many other early morning hosts who get up at 1 o'clock in the morning. That is a dedication to his audience. And, I know what it takes to put on a 4-hour show. because I've done the mornings and I now do the afternoons. And I'm telling you, it's not an easy task to get up that early, to be sharp in the morning, and to bring the game that he brings. And cut all the sound that he cuts and have it ready, and then to go through that in a very coherent way. It's really it's a testament to his dedication to a good work ethic and constant honing of his craft. Congratulations, Dan Mandis. Couldn't be any more happy for anyone winning that award, the Marconi Award. That's a feather in your cap, buddy, let me tell you. Some state news, local news, really. You remember on September 12th, we had this incident that happened out at B&A, and it was a scary thing. One of those potential near-miss situations out there between a couple of aircraft. And the National Transportation Safety Board, I guess, has done their preliminary investigation. It's not their final report. That will come later, but they've done a preliminary investigation, and here is what they found. They are leveling the blame for this mix-up on the air traffic controllers, at least initially. National Transportation Safety Board said an Alaska Airlines jet taking off September 12th at Nashville International Airport was cleared by air traffic controllers on the same runway where a Southwest Airlines plane was cleared to cross, nearly causing a collision. Alaska Airlines Flight 369, which is a Boeing 737 MAX 9 carrying 176 passengers and 6 crew, applied the brakes and aborted takeoff to prevent an accident with the Southwest Airlines planes, which had been told it was okay to cross that runway by air traffic controllers. The NTSB conducted interviews and reviewed documents related to the issue the following week, according to the preliminary report released Wednesday. So here's how it went. 9:12 a.m., an air traffic controller instructed the Alaska Airlines flight crew to line up and wait on runway 13. Less than a minute later, a ground controller instructed the Southwest Airlines crew to proceed to runway 20C and to cross runway 13 at taxiway 5. At 9:13 a.m., a local controller cleared Alaska Airlines flight to take off on runway 13. A minute later, the Alaska Airlines crew told controllers they were aborting. When they aborted, they slammed the brakes, and the fuse plugs on the tires, which I am told are designed to do this. All 4 of the fuse plugs on the landing tires deflated automatically. It is what they are supposed to do, and luckily they were able to shut down that aircraft before it got to the Southwest Airlines plane, which was crossing in front of it. Whew. I mean, close. NTSB report reveals that the cockpit voice recording from the Southwest Airlines plane was overwritten. Now, I don't know that there's anything nefarious about that. What I know is that these things are on a continuous loop recording, and if you don't get the recording data, out of the plane in a relatively quick period of time, then it just records over in a continuous loop. So something happened there. Alaska Airlines said in a statement to the Tennessean that the pilots immediately applied the brakes to prevent a collision. Our pilots train for these situations, and they handle the situation expertly. The crew taxied the aircraft off the runway and close to the terminal, where the tires deflated due to heat buildup from the rapid stop on the runway, as designed. This report comes from the Tennessean, and again, it's the preliminary report from the National Transportation Safety Board. Final report will be coming, but, good work by the pilot of the Alaska Airlines plane, and real questions now about what happened in the control tower with the air traffic controllers. Other news, I think you need to understand that, of course, in East Tennessee right now, they are still trying to patch things up. Horrible, horrible situation. But here's good news. They have to make some adjustments in how you would vote under these circumstances, since we're just, 25, 26 days away from the election. And here's the word on that. According to justthenews.com, residents in 6 East Tennessee counties affected by Hurricane Helene will be able to vote absentee or in person, but some of the polling places may be different. This according to Tennessee Secretary of State Trey Hargett. Early voting begins next week for the November 5th election. Residents could request an absentee ballot 90 days before Election Day. According to the Secretary of State, voters who've lost ballots already mailed or who need a ballot should contact their local elections office. The devastation experienced in Northeast Tennessee is heartbreaking and unimaginable, said Hargett. However, I continue to be amazed at the planning and resiliency of our local election officials. We have been working with our local election administrators, Josh Blanchard, Sarah Fain, Tracy Harris, Dana Jones, Cherry Lipford, Justin Reeves, throughout the entirety of this disaster, and their unwavering leadership and commitment will ensure this election proceeds as planned, so registered voters will have the opportunity to vote. So, the Cock County Election Commission in Newport has moved to a new location, and that's something that, of course, that they're telling the folks out there. Hargett's office created a link for anyone in the affected county that needs information. So if you have friends out there and they're wondering how they're going to cast their ballots, and you can help them get that information, there is a link at the Secretary of State's office that will help you get the information you need to make sure that happens. It's something to think about, because what happens, North Carolina is a absolute battleground state. And much of the area where this disaster hit with the heavy rains that cause mudslides and flooding and all kinds of horrific things really sort of impacts the more rural part of the state. And in most of these states, it's the rural voters that tend to be Republicans. And so, one needs to look and see exactly what they're doing in Georgia. What are they doing in North Carolina to make sure that people in the rural areas get a chance to vote? Because the way this works is, generally in sort of your major market areas, they tend to go more blue, and then out in the country, where the real American people live, it is a lot more red. And if the red people can't vote, then the election is slanted. So we need to make sure that North Carolina is doing everything they can. We've got, 25 days or so to get this straightened out. But can you imagine, the chaos of just trying to put your life back together? It's going to be very difficult for these people to say, you know what, of all the things I have to do today just to survive, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get out there and vote. We got to make sure that these folks have a chance to cast their ballots. It's going to be something to watch very closely. I think we're headed for a really good turnout in this election. The thing that I'm looking through the 2024 numbers, as we were doing just a short while ago, the one thing that I keep coming back to is that I get some sense that people are very, very energized to vote this time around, both Democrat and Republican. And so, turnout is going to be an important thing. Democrats traditionally have a good ground game, and Republicans have been working very hard to sort of up their ground game. I think what I'm hearing from the RNC is that they've made real inroads into that. And again, remember, we're about to begin our early voting here in Tennessee. Ken, I think that's on the 15th, isn't it? Do you know? I think it's the 15th is when that starts.
I will have to check that, Brother Brian.
I think it's the 15th or the 16th, something like that. The early voting will begin here in Tennessee. And, look, you probably know who you're going to vote for, right?
Early voting October 16th through the 31st.
All right, so from 16th through Halloween.
Yep, Halloween. Yeah, Halloween.
Halloween. Not Halloween. Halloween. Don't get me started on that. So, you're going to get a chance. I know I'm going to do on the 16th. I'm going to go vote, and I'm going to get it done and be finished with it. There's no reason why, we should wait to the last minute, because you know what happens? You get to an election day and, you have every intention of going to vote and doing your civic duty, and then life intervenes.
Something happens, man. Yeah.
It does. It happens like that. And so even though you had the best intentions, things can pop up. Weather can be bad. Maybe you don't want to get out. Maybe there are all kinds of things that can happen. So get it done early. Take advantage of early voting. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Hey, big news from DT McCall's. Have you been thinking about buying a gun safe but putting it off? Now is the time. Gun safes are sales tax free. That's right. Sales tax free. It's hunting season, so be sure you're keeping your guns safe when you're not in the tree stand with the Liberty Gun Safe from DT McCall's. Now, DT McCall's is the largest Liberty safe dealer in Tennessee. Why? Well, free delivery and setup. Some charge $500 at least for delivery and setup of the bigger models, and $300 for the smaller models. DT McCall & Son delivers every safe free every time period, never a setup charge. Security is important these days, and a Liberty gun safe from DT McCall's can be used for valuables, cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, anything that you want to keep safe from theft or from fire. So save some big bucks now on your Liberty gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Just go to dtmccalls.com for location and information.
Trapped in a Colorado mine. There is a rescue underway for some tourists, and we got the interest rate cut last month. All of a sudden, mortgage rates surge. Details at 5 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Coming up in the next hour, we'll take a look at what happened with Hurricane Milton and the continuing cleanup from Hurricane Helene. That's all coming up. And then if you hear about the inflation numbers, not real good information. And it sort of explains why, many people are having a hard time making ends meet. You just don't have enough money left at the end of the month. We'll find out what that's all about. It's all straight ahead right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 58 minutes now past the hour.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We might be able to see the northern lights tonight because of the big solar flare that's going on. So might be worth taking a look-see outside tonight. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Rescue efforts underway in Teller County, Colorado after an incident trapping tourists in a mine 1,000 feet underground. Here's Alex Stone.
Colorado's governor is directing state resources to help with the rescue of members of a tourist group trapped in the mine. It's a tourist gold mine that has paid tours for visitors. The governor saying Colorado's Emergency Operations Center is now activated and a mine rescue team from the Department of Natural Resources is en route. We're told multiple people are trapped. The mine did not collapse. There was some kind of equipment malfunction.
Michelle Franzen with our Hurricane Milton update.
Both coasts of Florida and in between dealing with widespread damage and power outages following Hurricane Milton. It's now churning out in the Atlantic. At least 10 are dead, Homeland Security says, due to tornadoes in St. Lucie County yesterday. Kevin Guthrie with Florida's Emergency Management says rescues continue due to flooding.
They worked before the storm, during the storm, and they're going to continue to work until we make sure that anybody there that needs to be rescued will be rescued.
At a briefing, the president says FEMA is on the ground and initial aid is being distributed. He says after Hurricanes Milton and Helene, the Small Business Administration will need more funding to meet the longer-term needs and called on Congress to return.
The SBA is pretty right at the edge right now. And I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on emergency needs immediately, and they're going to have to come back after the election as well.
No word if Congress will return early.
Here in Tennessee, Governor Lee announced a new $100 million program to help crews clear dangerous debris and restore drinking water and wastewater infrastructure in East Tennessee due to the Hurricane Helene flooding there. Lee says the state's also giving sales tax relief to the county's impact and the individuals there. There's a 2025 trial date in the sex trafficking and abuse case against Sean Diddy Combs, the music mogul, appearing in court today. Aaron Katursky was there.
It was a request from the defense to get a trial started as soon as possible. So the government conceded May 5th is when Combs is going to stand trial. Prosecutors said that trial should last about a month, but they did say It is an ongoing investigation. They did raise the possibility of a superseding indictment, so additional charges could affect the length of the trial.
Combs is accused of leading a criminal enterprise that sexually abused and exploited women. He has denied the charges, and he's going to stay in jail throughout the time between now and when his trial starts in May next year. The average rate on a 30-year mortgage in the U.S. surged to 6.32% this week, adding pressure on home buyers facing sky-high prices and a limited supply of houses for sale. The rate ticked up from 6.1% last week, according to mortgage buyer Freddie Mac. Now, until the past 2 weeks, rates had been mostly declining since July in anticipation of last month's move by the Fed to cut its main interest rate for the first time in more than 4 years. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Crashes. Here's 124 westbound at Bell Road. The right lane is blocked. Then 24 westbound at I-40. Got a crash there on the eastern split. Checking Sumner County right now. We've got 65 northbound between Bethel Road and Springfield White House exit. That's a 4-minute delay right now. In Jolton, still dealing with that overturned vehicle, 24 eastbound after Whites Creek Pike. We've also got a stalled vehicle. It is blocking the left 2 lanes of 40 eastbound at Jefferson Street. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad you're listening to The Drive as you drive home. And, you know, we're going to do everything we can to get you informed. We want to We want to make sure that we do every can to give you the information you need, and then along the way, if we happen to hack off some liberal listeners, that's okay. That's all right, fine. That's what we do. Not worried about it. But we want you to come home and walk into the fam and give them some kind of little factoid that you learned on this show. Share with them your knowledge. And you know what? I don't even care if you give me the credit. Just go ahead. Use the information. It's fine. Let's take a look at the situation in Florida after the passage of Hurricane Milton. You know what? You never want to say that it wasn't much, because it was. It was a hurricane. It was a Cat 3 hurricane when it came in, and there are 12 people dead, 3 million people without power. Parts of Sarasota County experienced an 8 to 10 foot surge of water, and that did some damage. There's no doubt about it. Add to that 10 to 15 inches of rain, and the rivers are running above normal. And there was a report of as many, perhaps as 45 tornadoes in the state as the outer bands of the storm were starting to lash the peninsula of Florida. They were having tornado. I think there were 133 tornado warnings, some outrageous number. So, it wasn't insignificant. So that being said, it could have been so much worse. I'm gonna do with that thing that weather people do, when they give you a forecast and the forecast turns out wrong. Well, we dodged a bullet, but we really did dodge a bullet. It was unknowable. Yesterday at about this time, we were probably about an hour and a half away from the hurricane coming on land. And even then, it was hard to know exactly the track of the hurricane because it was wobbling left and wobbling right. And it did make a turn to the south. And you know what happened then? Or to the east, and therefore coming in further south than Tampa Bay. So the weak side of the storm, the so-called, the backside of the storm, instead of pushing water into Tampa Bay and causing all kinds of mayhem in Tampa Bay Tampa Bay, St. Pete, it was a little south of it. And actually, it did exactly the opposite. It actually sucked all the water out of the bay. I've seen this happen before. It's really something. The bay, that you're used to seeing with water, sometimes you can see land way out into the bay as the water is pulled out by the wind, forcing it away from land rather than against land. But that meant that the people in Sarasota got a 10-foot wall of water. They got the recipients of that surge. But had it gone into Tampa Bay itself, that was the worst case scenario. And the governor of the state, Ron DeSantis, said we did not have the worst case.
The storm was significant, but thankfully this was not the worst case scenario. This storm came in the way it did. The dirty side of the storm was kind of Sarasota, Charlotte area. And then the northern side of the storm, it actually, instead of doing storm surge into Tampa Bay, it sucked it out. But the northern side of the storm had a lot of precipitation. They were just getting water dumped on them. So whereas Helene created a lot of storm surge in that part of the state, this one didn't do that there, but it created inland flooding. And so you see that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. You also got an awful lot of water dumped in the center and northern parts of the state on the northern side of the storm. So we're going to continue to respond for those as appropriate.
So let me tell you what we do know about it. We do have heavy rainfall, totals up to 10 to 15 inches, observed across much the Tampa Bay area, Nature Coast, and spreading eastward along the I-4 corridor. When you talk about the I-4 corridor, that is one of the most heavily populated parts of Florida. It is politically significant. People say that's where elections in Florida are decided, along the I-4 corridor. However the I-4 corridor goes, so goes the state. But, it's also a place where there's so many people, and they got 10 to 15 inches of rain, isolated pockets of up to 18 inches of rain observed in Pinellas and coastal Hillsborough County. And what does that mean? It means that many of the rivers are running above their flood stage for the next day or so. So they're not completely done with the danger there. Right now, it looks like Sarasota County had the most significant surge storm, likely somewhere between 8 and 10 feet. Water rescues have been reported around the state. Around 135 people were saved from flooded assisted living facility in Orlando and Clearwater. Law enforcement in other parts of the state warning locals to stay off the roads to avoid downed power lines. The Tampa International Airport and Orlando Airport were conducting damage assessments to figure out when they could reopen to travelers. But again, all that said, not near the storm it could have been. Had it gone into Tampa Bay, it would have been pretty bad. It really tore up the Tropicana Stadium. It took the roof off of it. It was sort of a fabric roof anyway, but it's in tatters and heavily damaged. So there you have it, sort of the basic information. And again, the crews are there. They've pre-staged. They're ready to go. Ron DeSantis, however, was asked a question at this briefing because, I don't know, folks, there are people out there who believe with every fiber of their being, and I'm not among them, I'm just going to be the first to tell you, that somehow the government is controlling the weather. And I have a hard time understanding, why they think the government is controlling and why the government would be interested in having hurricanes. This hurricane, I mean, why would you want to help promote a hurricane? And people say, well, they're using lasers, they're using chemtrails, they're seeding the clouds. I don't know. You hear a bunch of wacky stuff out there, and I use that term. I mean it. I think it's wacky stuff. I don't believe in it. And if you do, I'm not going to try to have an argument with you because I've tried to have that argument, and there's no sense in it. You believe what you believe. But you know what? There's no difference than what happens on the other side of the equation with all of their belief in global climate change. Yes, the climate changes. It does. That's what climate does. It's constantly changing. And I don't think that it, and so Ron DeSantis was talking about that today because he was asked some questions about this.
Yeah, I just think people should put this in perspective. They try to take different things that happen with tropical weather and act like it's something. There's nothing new under the sun. This is something that the state has dealt with for its entire history. And it's something that we'll continue to deal with. I think what's changed is we've got 23 million people. A storm that hits is likely to hit more people and property than it would have 100 years ago. And so the potential for that damage has grown.
He's right about that. I mean, when we talk about why are these storms so much more expensive? Because more people are moving into these areas. 23 million people now in the state of Florida, and all of them want to live on the beach. So it's not surprising that there's a lot of expensive damage when these things happen. I'll tell you another thing. We see, well, there are more tornadoes being reported, more tornadoes. They had all these tornadoes. Well, you know what? You know why there are more tornadoes being reported? Because the Doppler radar got better at spotting them. And they now know where to go and look. Well, yeah, there was technically a tornado here. Maybe it was a 0 or a 1 or a 2, and it might have been missed completely because it's out in the middle of nowhere. Now that gets counted. And I think when you say more tornadoes, I think you have to look at, well, the technology has gotten better at finding and spotting these tornadoes. So, yeah, it sounds like things are worse. I don't know that they are necessarily any worse than they were. It's just that we've gotten better at spotting them. But I'll let him continue.
But what's also changed is our ability to do the prevention, to pre-stage the assets. I mean, we never did the pre-staging of power assets until I became governor. Now people expect that, but that wasn't what was done in the past. That's why people would be out with power for 3 weeks when we'd have hurricanes. We thought that that's not good. Now we have to pay to get these guys to come in, but my view is the quicker you get everyone hooked up, the better off the economy is going to be anyway. So why don't we just do that? Having the different search and rescue, having a state guard, all these different things are just bringing different tools to the fight, and it allows us to respond more effectively. So if we had the tools that we had in 1928 to fight an Ian or to fight some of these, you would have had higher death tolls. There's no question about that.
Speaking of history, sir, how many storms formed as rapidly as they have between Helena and Milton?
Oh, I mean, I think most people remember 2004, right? Where we had seemed like you had them every other week in 2004. Then there's also time period, you know, we had from 2006 to 16, we had no hurricanes at all in Florida.
Isn't that amazing? A full 10 years, there were no hurricanes at all? What did they say then?
There's also been times where we had a lot. The 1940s, we were getting hit a lot. You know, now more recently, we've had a spate of more. So that's just kind of the nature of it. But this really does. It has a lot of similarities to 2004 in terms of the season.
I mean, the fact of the matter is these things are cyclical. And it has a lot to do with eddy currents and all. There's like a whole different bunch of factors that it cause these things to be cyclical, and they come and they go. We have long dry spells where we don't have any hurricanes, and then we have very busy seasons. And this is the nature of our ever changing climate.
Yeah, Governor, a lot of folks, particularly quite a few who trust you and look to you for information, are possibly engaging in some misinformation about some entity controlling the weather. Can you take this opportunity to denounce that misinformation and set the record straight for folks who believe someone is controlling the weather?
Look, if I could control the weather, I would do, 78 and sunny year round. Now we get that, a lot in Florida, coming up in the months, but there would be no reason to ever do. So look, and this is on both sides. You kind of have some people think government can do this, and then others think it's all because of fossil fuels. The reality is what we see. There's precedent for all this in history. Like, it is hurricane season. You are going to have tropical weather. We hope that, a lot of the tropical weather are fish storms out in the Atlantic that never impact us. The reality is anything that gets in the Gulf of Mexico, it's got to hit something. Maybe it hits Mexico, maybe it hits Louisiana, but Florida is one, especially if it's moved when they bend east. We're the ones that are going to do. So like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. These are natural occurrences. We will deal with tropical weather for as long as we're Floridians.
What about the role of carbon emissions in propagating?
And it goes on and on and on. But I mean, you get the idea that he's not buying into that. Look, Jeff. If you're there, Jeff, yeah, take a look at the members nutrition super text line. Are people yelling at me because they say I don't believe in chemtrails? Because I mean, I'm telling you, that is every time I say that, I get people say, "Well, you haven't looked at the latest."
You are like dead on with how you worded that.
Yeah,
literally, that's how one of these texts starts. How you just described it. So yes, you're pretty accurate on that statement.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who get mad at me when I say that because I mean I know a lot of you believe it. I'm just not going to be there with you on that one. I'm sorry. Now look, I mean you say you say I'm naive. Wilson, haven't you seen this thing? Look, I've seen it all. I've seen it all, and I don't believe that lasers are controlling the weather, and I don't believe that the chemtrails are a thing. I just don't, and you can believe this. And it doesn't do any good for me to have this argument, because I mean you're going to believe what you believe, and no matter how reasoned our conversation, you're never going to change your mind about it. But I'm pretty set in my position as well. We can still be friends. I'm just not going to agree with you on that one thing. Can't we? We can still be friends, right? Okay. 21 minutes now, past the hour. Hey, you've been listening to me for some time now. You know who I trust with back pain, the Wellness Institute of Nashville. So if you're having back or knee pain, give them a call today at 615-246-5009 to get the help that you need. Now, but what I want to tell you about is something very important to the docs at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, throwing a community party in their backyard at the Charlie Daniels Park in Mount Juliet tomorrow. Tomorrow, the event is free. That's right. It starts tomorrow at 5:30. They open the gates. 6:30, I think the concert starts. And it is a concert that honors our local police officers, firefighters, first responders, and veterans. It is free to everyone. And not only that, some great music. The Artemis Pyle Band with founding members of Leonard Skinner will be playing all the hits. Colin Ray will be performing live, a full concert set. He's revealing a brand new song just for the event. It's a concert you don't want to miss. Super Talk 99.7 folks will be there on site and hosting the event. So bring your lawn chairs, blankets, and bring the family of all ages to party at the biggest community event ever. Mount Juliet has hosted the Love Our City concert, sponsored by Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley of the Wellness Institute of Nashville.
We'll update you on the situation in Colorado, where dozens of tourists are trapped 1,000 feet underground. Details at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour, and I'm apparently getting absolutely annihilated on the Member Nutrition Super Text line. Jeff, you read, because I don't have the ability here in Watertown to read that, but
Yes.
Chris usually watches it for me. So read a few of the things that are being said to me about people with regard, especially with regard to chemtrails.
So, yeah, one of them was from text number 6436. It says, and if there's no evidence of chemtrails, why did Tennessee ban them? That's the big one.
That is a great question. And when that came up, I went, okay. I don't really understand that one at all. To me, it was the greatest waste of time in the state legislature. But, I mean, like I say, there are people who get elected who believe the same things that some of these folks believe. And, you know, as I say, I think it went through because there's no percentage in arguing against it. Just as there is no percentage of me saying the things that I'm saying now, because the only thing that happens is I'm going to hack off a lot of people. Like our next, who else you got there for me?
I got 8212 that says geoengineering and seeding clouds is real. I don't think it's being used in this manner, how you were describing. But even when the Air Force admits that cloud seeding is real.
Well, now, they have done cloud seeding experiments. There's no doubt about that. That's well established. But that somehow, you know, where it goes, the next thing is, well, the government is trying to create superstorms. Or there's somebody out there trying to create these superstorms by these chemtrails. You know, here's the thing, and I'll just say this, and I'll move on. And again, if you want to know, you see a plane flying over, right? And you see a vapor trail behind it, and people go, chemtrails. No, that is the result of jet fuel being burned at high altitude. That's the residue that comes out. It's a moisturous vapor that comes out of the back of the jet when you're at altitude and the temperatures are low and the conditions are just right. You get a vapor trail. It is not a chemtrail. It's not like we're being poisoned. And here's how you can tell, right? You get you one of these little apps on your phone that will tell you who's flying above you. And I promise you can do this. I've done it. Out of curiosity, one time I just decided I'd have some fun with it, try to figure it out. It will tell you, okay, that thing you see flying over your head right now is Southwest Airlines flight XXY, or whatever the number is. And you'll find out it's not a government plane seeding the atmosphere with chemtrails. It's somebody trying to get to Orlando for a vacation at Disneyland. That's what that is. And you can track it. Every plane that's in the air has to have, you know, a tracking device on it. And you can get that on your very phone, and you can look at every plane that's flying over your house. And they'll tell you exactly what that plane is. And you're going to find out it's not some government plane, by and large. Anyway, long story short, what I do believe in is geomagnetic storms, and we may get one that will bring us the northern lights tonight.
Earth is under a severe geomagnetic storm watch today and tomorrow. NOAA has issued its warning after an outburst from the sun was detected earlier this week. A solar storm can disrupt power and radio signals. Electrical operators and space companies have been warned they could be impacted, and it could cause northern lights as far south as the Midwest and Northern California. This geomagnetic storm is expected to be less severe than one in May. Alex Stone, EBC News.
I will go out and take a look tonight. I don't think it's going to be as powerful as the one in May where we actually saw the northern lights, Ken. That was so cool.
I missed it.
You missed it? Yeah, I know. A lot of people slept right through it. Yeah, I didn't get to see the best part of it. I was aware of it, and I had plans to go out and look, but apparently it came a little sooner than I expected. And so I didn't find out. I saw the tail end of it, but it was there. You could definitely see the red glow in the sky. But people up north, they're getting quite the show right now because of this solar storm that is hitting us right now. Otherwise, I got to tell you, pretty rare event to see it down this far south. But they saw it even further south than us. Mm-hmm. They saw it all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. Amazing. That was a hell of a storm. All right, 30 minutes after the hour, time for the news now on Super Talk.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And again, rescue efforts underway at a tourist mine in Colorado. Here's Alex Stone.
Exactly what happened isn't clear, but the Teller County Sheriff's Department says a mine did not collapse, but there was an equipment malfunction inside the Molly Kathleen mine in Cripple Creek. It's a tourist gold mine where groups are brought in for tours. A source tells us multiple people were trapped and mutual aid was called in from Colorado Springs. The governor's office got involved, sending help.
Hurricane Milton update. Both coasts of Florida and everywhere in between dealing with widespread damage and power outages, at least 12 dead. President Biden is urging Congress to get back to Washington immediately and pass more disaster funding, warning that the Small Business Administration is close to exhausting its existing funds for disaster loans. Here in Tennessee,
there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of difficulty. There's been a lot of heartache across our state and frankly, across the country, and even continuing again in Florida. But what's needed most is efficient response that gets what people need delivered to them when they need it.
Now, Governor Lee announced a new $100 million program today that will help crews clear dangerous debris and restore drinking water and wastewater infrastructure in these East Tennessee counties affected. And Lee says the state's giving these counties and the individuals their sales tax relief. The Justice Department announced TD Bank pled guilty to federal felonies, including conspiracy to commit money laundering today. U.S. government says TD Bank created an environment that allowed financial crime to flourish for nearly a decade. The case alleges customers and several TD Bank employees were involved. The bank, the 10th largest in the U.S., did not immediately respond to the agreement to settle. That's going to be a $3 billion fine. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, all the way down to Murfreesboro now. We've got the left 3 lanes blocked of 24 eastbound. That is just after Old Fort Parkway. There's a crash there. And then closer to Nashville, actually north of Nashville now, we're still dealing with that overturned vehicle 24 eastbound after Whites Creek Pike. That's over there in Jolton. And traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Grace Point Healthcare provides affordable, convenient, and comprehensive medicine. They're known for their basic Smart Care plan, which starts at just $69 a month and offers free office visits and free basic labs for diagnostic tests for an entire year. Not a bad deal, really. At Grace Point, you're usually seen the same day or the next day. There are no long wait times in the waiting rooms, and Grace Point is your primary provider that treats the entire family from newborns to seniors. Now, I don't know, maybe you're noticing it. Fall allergy season is here. Do not suffer through another seasonal change. Get complete testing and treatment and enjoy the beauty of fall this year. Grace Point is a military veteran-owned practice located in the heart of Franklin. Call this number, 615-599-6868, to schedule your next medical appointment. Grace Point Healthcare, modern medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. It is 5:38 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. And if you are watching on Super Talk TV, you're not going to believe what's behind me right now. You know how in radio you got your headphones on, and you're always thinking about the next thing, and and doing getting ready for the next segment, and you're completely absorbed in your work, and then all of a sudden you sort of catch something out of your corner of the eye, and you're startled because there's somebody behind you. Well, as it turns out, behind me right now is a giant pink unicorn.
Yeah,
a gigantic, inflatable, live pink unicorn.
I knew they existed.
Yeah, and it brought me a rose. It actually inside is Cabana Wife right now. And this is our anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And shows, yes, nod, unicorn, yes. And she brought me a rose. Did you see your flowers, unicorn? I saw it. Okay, I put flowers inside the house for her when she got home. So, this, I got to tell, a big hug from the pink unicorn.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Now, folks, if you missed this, the wonderful thing about it is you can go back and you can see this segment.
Oh, that's too good.
When we post post all the video online. Honey, I'll catch up with you at dinner.
Yes.
That's for the people at home. You get a big kick out of it.
Giddy up.
But it scared me to death.
Oh, that was great.
And I guess this is going to be her Halloween costume as well. She's coming out of it. She's coming out of it. It's a coming. Oh, this is not pretty seeing it deflate like that. Oh my goodness. I love you, honey. Okay, thank you.
Great.
Happy anniversary.
It's the great thing about working at home. You get to see your wife, when she comes home from work. All right. This is the Three Amigos. I've already eaten up a lot of our time. This is where we get together, and we have Ken Weaver, who's Amigo number 1. Today,
good afternoon, boys.
Jeff Malinoff is Amigo number 2, filling in for Chris Weber. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, sir.
And I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and I'm Amigo number 3. Together we make up the Three Amigos. The general sense of this thing is that what we do is we find a silly story or a dumb thing, and we talk about it, and you never know what's going to happen from there. So you guys need to start today because I got completely distracted by the pink unicorn.
It's fair.
And am not completely ready. Go ahead.
I got something. It was trouble to find stuff today, but I found maybe the most obscure, like the worst article I've ever seen. Like, they give you a headline on Twitter or X and just like, no one believes this. Well, Politico outdid themselves today.
Yeah.
This happened mere hours ago.
Okay.
Politico puts, Harris is writing a dream economy into the election. It may be too late for voters to notice. Are you kidding me? That's a real article made by Politico.
To notice.
But a dream economy. Like, this is the perfect economy.
Everything is just lovely.
And people wonder why they're not believing the media anymore.
Yeah. Look, I mean, depending on where you go for your news, you're going to find a lot of people who are, rooting for one side more than the other. Let's just put it that way.
They've been real quiet today about the inflation report.
Yeah. They have been quiet about that, and they don't want to answer questions, as I'll show you in a few moments, about this Afghani guy that they arrested, who wanted to, kill a lot of people on Election Day. Mm-hmm. They were asked questions about that, and they went out of their way not to answer, on some pretty thin premises of why they could not answer. Yeah. But you're right. There's a lot of that goes on.
Yeah. If inflation goes down 2%, but it was already risen by 40%, it's not down. It's still up.
Yeah, we got. I was going to talk about inflation. We'll talk about it in the next hour again. But you're right. When you talk about the total cost of things on average since Joe Biden took the oath of office on January of 21, on average, your total cost just to live an existence in life, buy grocery, put a roof over your head, and pay for your car and put your insurance down, everything, 20%.
Yeah.
That means that your costs have gone up by 1/5, and your pay has not gone up that much.
Yeah, I saw something on Bankrate too that of the 400 items they've been tracking, only 6% of them have prices actually stabilized. So yeah. And one thing that they don't want to tell you is that what you just imparted there, Brother Brian, is that everything costs at least 20% more, and I don't think very many of us have gotten 20% raises.
I know I haven't. I haven't for sure. So, yeah, that's the part of it. All right, Ken, what do you have?
All right. So I found this on the New York Post. America's best and worst chain restaurants revealed. And I've got a burr. Is it a burr where I don't? No, it's a bee where I don't want to be to be.
A bee under your bonnet, a burr under your saddle.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's
and a bug in a place where you don't want to have a bug.
All right. So this study conducted by this outfit called Coupon Birds. It's a platform that provides coupons and discounts for online shopping with over 30,000 merchants and millions of users each month. So they have their top 10 restaurants. Number 1 is Chick-fil-A.
Correct answer.
And I think everybody can agree with that. Coming in at number 2 is Five Guys. Then you have Jersey Mike's Subs. Waffle House and Starbucks are the top 5.
Waffle House?
Waffle House.
Okay.
Dairy Queen is 6th. Arby's is 7th. Panera Bread. And then Dairy Queen Grill and Chill. What's the difference between What's the difference between DQ Grill and Chill and just regular DQ?
Well, it's what DQ used to be the old Dairy Queen, the Dairy Queen, has become now the DQ Grill. I think that just sort of they changed and updated their name and they don't really serve hamburgers anymore.
No.
Most of them don't.
How is Arby's up there so high?
Don't ask
Arby's
me,
is always known as like once you eat it, you just contemplate your life decisions.
Yeah, and you question how long that roast beef has been out underneath the lamp.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last two, number 9 was IHOP, and then number 10, Carl's Jr.
IHOP?
Hardee's
for those of the East Coast, Carl's Jr.
Now, Coupon Bird's worst rated chains. This is where I have a problem.
Okay.
And I'll get to it. All right. So I'm going to go from worst to, or rather, least worst to worst.
Most worst. Okay.
Yeah, most worst.
Yeah.
So coming in at number 10 is Wetzel's Pretzels. Bucefaro Family McDonald's. I've never heard of that.
What?
I have no idea what that is. South Philly Cheesesteaks and Fries. Now, I do know what this is. Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
Got that. But this is where I have a problem. They have Sonic.
Oh, really?
As their 5th worst fast food restaurant or
they don't
chain
like
restaurant.
There's no more rollerblading. They just don't like the rollerblades for takeaway.
No, let me tell you the thing about Sonic. I love me a good Sonic burger.
Yes, sir.
And a good Sonic chili dog.
Mm-hmm.
And their blast or blurry McFlurries or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. But the thing about I find with Sonic restaurants is that there is it's rather uneven. You can go to some and they're great and the service is quick and they crank it out.
There you go.
And then you go to some and you wait forever for that little red light to be answered.
That has happened. I do have to admit that has happened. The one I go to, though, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I always give a healthy tip to those servers because, man, they are working their tail ends off.
I love their tater tots. I think they're pretty good.
They used to serve deep fried Oreos for a limited time that were amazing. And I wish they brought those back.
Yes, sir. All right, so
round out the list there.
All right, so here's 5-1. Popeyes, Wahlburgers.
What? Hold it just a minute.
Popeyes.
I love that chicken from Popeyes.
Yes, sir, I do too.
I mean, there's nothing better than some of their spicy chicken.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. Go ahead.
Wahlburgers. I think that's the Wahlberg brothers.
Yeah, I don't think we have any of those here.
No,
never.
I don't think. Do we have a Bobby's Burgers by Bobby Flay?
I don't think so.
No.
That's 3rd worst. McDonald's comes in at number 2.
No, that's Yeah.
And the worst rated chain, according to Coupon Birds, is Taco John's, which it says here that's kind of like the Midwest's version of Taco Bell. But Taco Bells are everywhere.
Right.
I'm surprised they're picking ones that are just kind of obscure, not all around.
Now, if you talk to Dan Mandis, we have this burger debate all the time.
Yeah.
And, who has the best burger? And, I was very excited when the folks from, what's it called? The hamburger chain.
Whataburger.
Whataburger. When they came into town, I was very excited because they're all over Texas, and that's sort of a thing you grow up on. If you grew up in Texas, you go get a Whataburger down at the Whataburger, and they were fairly consistent. And again, what I find is Whataburgers are uneven. You go to some, and the food's really good. It's very hot, and it's very tasty. You go to some, not so much. You go to some, you get great service. You go to some, not so much. But I was excited about that. Dan, he insists that the guy, what is it, In-N-Out Burger out of California.
I'm on his side on that one. I'm sorry. I grew up in the West Coast. That was my go-to.
Everybody says they're pretty good, and they're coming.
I know. I'm so excited.
To our area. I think the first one's going to be in Mount Juliet.
They're like East Coast headquarters would be in Franklin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. They're going to start trying to take over the East Coast the way they took over the West Coast, and I think that'll be quite good.
The reason they didn't move is because I believe they had a particular beef they got it from in the West Coast. That's where they got their main beef was this one butcher area. So I think that's why they hesitated to expand. But now they're expanding, which is exciting.
Well, okay. Well, other than having a pink unicorn come and interrupt my show, I do have a quick story, and we're about out of time, so I have to do this very quickly.
Let's hear it.
A Washington State woman calls 911. She says there are 100 bandits outside my house. Well, she said there were raccoons. Actually, there were 100 raccoons.
That's still frightening.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, I just called them. They have the little mask, so they look like bandits.
100 of anything is scary.
Sheriff deputies in Washington, Kitsap County frequently get calls about animals, the livestock, problem dogs. But she called and said she's being hounded by dozens of raccoons, and she had to flee her property after 50 to 100 raccoons descended upon it and were acting aggressively. Nobody knows why. All of a sudden, and they got pictures of them. There's 100. Looks like 100 raccoons on her property.
That's scary. That's legit.
Why
that's
would
horrifying.
Raccoons gather in one spot?
Somebody's been feeding them. In that neighborhood.
Probably that's it. That's it. I wouldn't want. Raccoons are cute to watch from a distance.
Rabies, man. They probably all have rabies.
That's what I always think.
Don't want to tangle with them.
Yeah.
All right. 51 past the hour. Hey, can I break away from my regular talking points about United Structural Systems? I mean, they've been around since 1994, more than 25,000 satisfied residential customers, to tell you about my personal experience, because I've had some things here around the house that I was a little worried about. When you have hot weather and cold and then a lot of rain, it's dry and wet, that's when you start to have problems with your foundation. And I saw a couple of things that concerned me, and I had the folks at USS come out and take a look at it. And today, and yesterday as well, they've been working around the house. I got to tell you, I had those stair-step cracks in the bricks, right? You've seen that, right? And they say that's one of the signs you got an issue. I'm going to tell you, they came out, worked on it, and it looks just like new. They did a great job. They're working underneath my house as well, because we're putting in some drainage stuff out there that probably needed to be done a long time ago. And I'm finding these people to be very, very polite. They let you know when they're going to come. They show up on time. They work hard all day long. And I think you're good. If you do need any of these things, foundation repair, waterproofing work, maybe you've got concrete that sinks or slopes, any of these things, call this number, 615-488-7855. That's the number to USS, and I think you're going to be well pleased. You don't pay a penny till the job is done, and you're completely satisfied. Learn more at USSTN.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Dozens of tourists trapped 1,000 feet underground. Details coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, coming up, I mean, boy, I tell you what, as the day progresses, I'm seeing even more and more information about the 2024 election that suggests that something is happening in a very positive way for conservatives and Republicans. And I'll tell you more about that right after the news with Ken Weaver. It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Hey, have you ever noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you, hey, that thing you're looking for, it'll be ready at 4 p.m., and you get there, and it's not there. It's not ready. You're tapping your toe, right? People are tired of that stuff. Well, listen, if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, come to Eurofix. Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's supposed to be ready, so you're not standing around and waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. That's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of a dealership's overhead, and that is a lot of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable means a 3 3-year nationwide warranty, plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. So if you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable. Eurofix, family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now, rescue efforts underway in Teller County, Colorado, after an incident trapping tourists in a mine about 1,000 feet underground. Here's Alex Stone.
Colorado's governor is directing state resources to help with the rescue of members of a tourist group trapped in the mine. It's a tourist gold mine that has paid tours for visitors. The governor saying Colorado's Emergency Operations Center is now activated and a mine rescue team from the Department of Natural Resources is en route. We're told multiple people are trapped. The mine did not collapse. There was some kind of equipment malfunction.
And now we have late word that at least one person was killed when that elevator malfunctioned. Hurricane Milton update, both coasts of Florida and everywhere in between, dealing with widespread damage and power outages, at least 12 dead. Governor Ron DeSantis with a message to anyone thinking of looting.
I'm warning you, don't do that. If you loot, you will be held accountable. If you're doing things that violate the law, if you're going to try to take advantage of vulnerable people, we're going to throw the book at you.
Here in Tennessee, Governor Lee just announced $100 million available for the counties impacted by Hurricane Helene. It is money, he says, that they have right now that will go to these counties for cleanup of dangerous debris, also to fix water and wastewater infrastructure. These counties are also getting a break on sales taxes. Meanwhile, President Biden claims there's not enough money to help small businesses recover from these storms.
President Biden urged lawmakers to return to Washington immediately and pass more disaster funding, warning that the Small Business Administration is close to exhausting its existing funds for disaster loans.
The SBA is pretty right at the edge right now. And I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on emergency needs immediately.
The president said he thinks Congress will need to soon address funding for long-term rebuilding in the Southeast after these back-to-back hurricanes, saying it's going to cost billions of dollars.
Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial for sex trafficking and abuse on May 5th of next year. The music mogul appearing in federal court in New York City today. Aaron Katursky was there telling us prosecutors anticipate the trial will last about a month, though it could be extended because the investigation is ongoing.
About 100 devices seized in raids of Diddy's homes last March, and then after his arrest in September, they're still going through the 100 electronic devices. They're having some trouble getting into all of them, but it gives you a sense of just how much evidence prosecutors already have as they begin to dig into this case.
That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. Right now, just seeing one crash on the interstates. This is going to be 24 eastbound after Old Fort Parkway. The right shoulder blocked there in Murfreesboro. Elsewhere, just the usual slowdowns for this time of day. It is particularly heavy if you are going east and westbound 40 on the South Loop and then over there between downtown and the 24 split. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good evening, everyone. 8 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to The Drive, where we drive you home. We drive home a few salient points, and we try to drive the liberals just a little bit crazy if we can. It's an extra added bonus. We get a little glee out of that. We do, honestly. It's been a very eventful day here on The Drive. If you missed it, just before the Three Amigos began, I was accosted by a giant pink unicorn. And it was it's one of those things where, you're very focused on what you're doing, and you're looking forward, and you got your head into the next segment, and you're planning out what you're going to say, and you're very focused on your work. And then all of a sudden you sense something behind you, or you catch something out of the eye, the periphery, and it scared me to death. There was something gigantic and pink behind me, and it was a gigantic pink unicorn. My wife in a unicorn uniform, which, she came to bring me a rose on our anniversary. So if you want to see that great moment, you can see it on the podcast when we put it up. You'll be able to play it back and see it. It's quite, sometimes when these things happen, when I get startled, I've been known to hit people. When I'm sorry, just out of reflex, just reflexive, like trying to protect yourself because you're frightened, and next thing you know, you've when you've been surprised by somebody and they're laying on the ground. I would never do that to Cabana wife, but I got to tell you, I didn't know what it was. All I knew, it was big and pink, and it was coming at me. So there. We're going to spend some time talking about our 2024 politics because we got something going on here. To quote the old Buffalo Springfield song, something's happening here, and what it is becoming more clear, and I think it's good news. Listen, I tell you what, and just a few weeks ago, if you'd asked me what's going to happen with this election, and you twisted my arm and said, who's going to win? I don't think I could have told you. Honestly, I thought it was that tight and hard to see. But what happens toward the last days of a campaign, we're 25, 26 days out, is that as you get down to the end of the thing, you have a certain number of people who have been undecided, and they start to break one way or the other. And I think they're voting their pocketbooks, and that's to be expected in an election like this one. I'm going to give you not one, not two, but three very positive reports. And again, I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. I don't do this every day, but I need to today so you can understand this trend. Again, don't look at one poll, look at the average, but then also look at the trend. What is the trend? And if you look at the trend over the last few weeks, it's coming away from Kamala Harris and toward Donald Trump. The momentum is definitely on the Republican side of the equation here. Let me start by letting you hear Mark Halperin. Now, Mark Halperin is a pollster, and he is a guy who he mostly polls for the left, and he's a lefty. But he'll give you the straight poop as far as the polling is concerned. And he's on a podcast the other day, and he says that in the battleground states, he's looking at data, some data that you haven't even seen, private data in some cases, that suggests that Kamala Harris is starting to get in trouble in the battleground states.
What's happening now with Kamala Harris is this is an experiment. Can you win a short campaign with an untested candidate? And what I'm telling you is happening in private polling is she's got a problem now, okay? It's not cheering for Trump. It's not predicting Trump will win. She's got a problem. Wall Street Journal has a story
One
about
person was killed and others
Democrats
injured.
really worried about the three Rust Belt states. We all know from our contacts in both campaigns that Pennsylvania is tough for her right now. And without Pennsylvania, there are paths, but there aren't many. There's no path without Wisconsin. So you see here, Tammy Baldwin's Senate campaign poll shows Harris down 3 in Wisconsin. Baldwin has her down 3. Not Baldwin has Harris down 3. You think of the 7 battleground states. Which ones is Harris in danger of losing? I would say Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. I'm not saying she'll lose all 6, but she's in danger. She could lose any of those 6, right? I mean, she could lose all 7, but Democrats will tell you they're worried about those 6. They're less worried about the 7th. Yeah. I don't know any Trump person who says they're worried about losing any of the 7. They don't know that. They don't necessarily think they're the favorite in Michigan and Wisconsin, but they're not worried about losing it. Right. There's not. You don't hear from them, oh my goodness. What you hear is we're moving up. What the 3 of us are hearing. We're moving up in those 2. We're going to win. We're going to win the 3 Sunbelt states, and we're stronger in Pennsylvania than she is. That, to me, if the whole thing's about the Electoral College, you take any of the Rust Belt states away from her, It's very difficult for her to win. Very difficult. It's not mathematically impossible, but it probably won't happen if she loses any of them.
All right, so that's Mark Halperin looking at internal data, and these are polls that are not public polls, and he says, look, there's a problem there. And now let me give you the numbers from today from the Hill Emerson poll, all right? Battleground poll, they have Pennsylvania, Trump up by 1. Michigan, they have it a tie, although there's a Q poll out there that has Trump up by 4 in Michigan. Wisconsin, they have it as a tie. Again, that Q poll has Trump up by 2 in Wisconsin. Remember, the Tammy Baldwin poll that we talked about has him up by 3. North Carolina, they have Trump up by 1. Georgia, Trump up by 1. Arizona, Trump up by 2. It is only in Nevada where the Hill Emerson poll has Harris up by 2. So that echoes exactly what Mark Halperin was saying. That, in 6 of these polls, there has been movement in these battleground states toward Trump and away from Harris. And only in that 7th one, Nevada, are they feeling a bit more confident. But now here's the third. Here's the third group of polls that show essentially the same thing. This is from justthenews.com. Former President Donald Trump appears poised to take every major battleground state in the 2024 election, according to his own internal polls. The Republican-led Vice President Kamala Harris in Georgia by 5, in Arizona by 3, in Nevada by 3, Pennsylvania by 1, Wisconsin by 1, Michigan by 2, North Carolina by 1. This is the latest Fabrizio McLaughlin survey conducted 6th through the 9th of October, questioning 800 likely voters in each state, and has a margin of errors of 3.5. As you can see, President Trump holds an edge in all 7 battlegrounds, including the blue wall states, says Tony Fabrizio and John McLaughlin in a Thursday memo. Should such polling hold, they noted, Trump would claim 312 electoral votes. That would be a wipeout. That would be an absolute wipeout. Now I'm going to very quickly just check Real Clear Politics, because Real Clear Politics has updated their battleground map. And they say that if you give all, if you just say, if you're leading in this poll, if you're leading in this state, we're going to award that to you. What would happen if you awarded all of the states where Trump is leading to Trump and awarded all of the states where Kamala Harris is leading to Kamala Harris? What would the Electoral College look like? You ready? Trump, 296. That would be a wipeout. That would be an astonishing wipeout. Now, good. Now, here's my caution, my little bit of caution. This is all within the margin of error. A lot of this stuff is within the margin of error. And we're talking about, if these polls are accurate, and we don't know if they're accurate. We don't know if the pollsters are accurately polling Trump or they're not accurately polling Trump. But one way or the other, what I can tell you is you got 3 polls showing essentially the same thing, and you have a trend line where Trump is going up and Kamala Harris is going down. And that's not surprising at this point in the campaign. It's really not, because that's when you normally have, a break one way or the other. And there'll be another break just before Election Day. And look, a lot of things can change. I'm a little concerned about things like how many rural voters are going to be able to vote in parts of North Carolina that were hit by a storm. What about Georgia? Same thing. What about Florida? Florida should be okay. Looks like Republicans have a good beat on things there. But remember, you had a hurricane that went through the Panhandle, which is a very Republican area. Could be a little tighter if those folks don't go to the polls because, well, they're busy trying to put their lives back together. All right, it's completely understandable. But I like what I'm seeing. And it may be the result of a lot of work done by the RNC in advance. From justthenews.com. Republican National Convention Chairman Michael Whatley expressed confidence Thursday that Republicans are surging at all levels on the ticket, crediting early voting, new registrations, and election integrity lawsuits. Yesterday was the first day in history we had more Republican absentee ballots returned than Democrats, said Whatley on the John Solomon Reports podcast. It's a very significant shift. The early voting numbers that we're seeing out of Virginia are very, very striking. According to local reports, early voting in the state of Virginia is up 38%. 38% in the Commonwealth of Virginia compared to the 2020 elections. Some numbers are showing that about 574,000 voters are voting in mostly red-leaning districts, and they have voted early. That's what we wanted. Then he says, Michael Whatley, we have 1 million more registered Republicans in Florida today than we do Democrats. We've cut the Democrat majority in half in terms of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Ohio. We're seeing huge gains that the Republicans are continuing to make there. They've won some lawsuits to force, like, for example, in Michigan, that the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, must enforce basic mail ballot safeguards ahead of the November 5th election. They won a lawsuit in New Hampshire to ensure that voter ID is the law of the land for this election in the state of New Hampshire. They are doing really well in regard to, they have been more active in that regard. And I got to tell you, as I look at this stuff, I'm beginning to get a wee bit optimistic. Now, again, things can change, and you don't look at one or two polls and you get too excited. But when you have three polls showing you essentially the same thing, I mean, the numbers are different here or there, but the trend is undeniable. Something seems to be happening. I talked to Pete Hegseth earlier this week, and I really trust Pete's vision on these kind of things. And I said, am I alone in saying this? And he said, yeah, I can understand why everybody's a little hesitant to say it, but he sees the same thing as well. Something is starting to happen in regard to the numbers, and let's just hope that that translates into what actually happens on Election Day. Okay, that's where we are. I got more political stuff to share with you, but we got to take a break at 21 past the hour. Say, listen, you know what time of the year it is? It's tailgating time. You go in tailgating. Well, here's a way to get some of the same flavors in your tailgating food that you have when you go to the Legend Steakhouse. It's very easy. Just take a walk down your local grocery store aisle to places like Walmart and Kroger and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. Johnny Fleeman's Marinade proprietary blend will give your steaks, chicken, or chops a flavor that will hit a home run with family and friends. It's low in sodium, about a third of other brands. You don't have to worry about over-marinating. And let's talk about his honey mustard salad dressing for a moment. Use it as a salad dressing or a dipping sauce for your favorite chicken fingers, fresh-cut veggies, or chips. It's a recipe used in his restaurant for over 35 years. Now, if your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, go to johnnyfleeman.com. That's johnnyfleeman.com. And it goes without saying, for those times when you want someone else to do all the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or for dinner.
At least one dead, dozens trapped. Details coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is already 26 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening. Brian Wilson on the chair on this 10th day of October, 10/10/24. Glad that you're with us as you're trying to get home. And we're in the waning moments of the show. We'll be here all the way till 7 o'clock. Then Mark Levin's show will take over. We were talking about 2024 stuff, and I'm trying not to get giddy. I'm trying not to get excited, trying to keep a level head about it. But I'd be less than honest if I didn't tell you I see some things starting to happen, things starting to shift, and that it seems that, this enthusiasm that some had immediately after Kamala Harris was named the nominee, I think Democrats were so giddy and so excited after, they realized, oh, thank goodness it's not going to be Joe Biden. If it's anybody but Biden, no, thank goodness for Kamala Harris. But then as we've gotten to know Kamala Harris, I think a lot of people don't like so much what they're seeing. And I think people are now thinking, you know what? I'm going to vote my pocketbook. I'm going to vote, Donald Trump, and we'll see. It was, because I did better under Trump than I did under Biden. And she said the other day, the most unbelievable thing. She said, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to change a thing."
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
She's right in line with me. He's the cat's meow. Everything that he's done is just great. So basically, she's going to be just a repeat of the Biden 4 years, and that wasn't so good for people. All right. Trump is outpacing Harris and Walz combined in the number of campaign events in the last month. Former President Donald Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris spent the run-up to the last stretch of the 2024 election barnstorming through battleground states. Trump has held 21 public campaign events, including remarks, rallies, press conferences, and town halls, compared to 13 for Harris and 7 for Walz. So 20. Together, 20. Trump is like the Energizer Bunny, man. He gets out there, and he just does it and does it and does it. J.D. Vance held 14 events in the month of September. This is the wrap. I mean, there is a wrap on Kamala Harris. It was when she was a senator. It was when she was vice president. That she doesn't like to do the work. She absolutely, will not put in the time. And she's not doing the number of events that Trump is doing. Now, she is, making herself trying to look more presidential, by showing up for, like, phone calls with regard to hurricane response and that kind of stuff. But I don't think anybody buys all that. Now, you say, okay, let's say maybe we're cautiously optimistic about what's happening in the presidential race. What about the Congress? Well, I don't have a great deal of confidence right now that the House is going to remain Republican. Maybe I'll be wrong. I'll look at it more closely as we get closer, and maybe it's possible that Trump's the follow-on to Trump, what do they call it? I forget the term, but anyway, that the people will, because they're voting for Trump, vote Republican for the House. Maybe that will happen, but I'm not real sure. But I am feeling pretty good about Republicans taking back the Senate, which, if you're going to have one of the two, I think there's an advantage to having the Senate. Senate, for example, is where you confirm nominees for the presidency. It's where you confirm Supreme Court nominees, and we may have some. So we'll see. Republicans appear poised to capture a majority of the U.S. Senate, writes Newsmax. Part of this is because, we got in West Virginia, very Republican state, probably one of the most Republican states in the Union. Represented right now in the Senate by Joe Manchin. He's retiring, and the Republican is expected to win that. Joe Manchin is an independent who caucuses with the Democrats. Then you got to look to the state of Montana. Senator John Tester trails Tim Sheehy. a wealthy Republican businessman and a former Navy SEAL by 8 percentage points. So looks like Montana is in pretty good shape. And then you look at, well, are the Democrats going to be able to flip any of the other Republican seats? The one I've been a little nervous about is Texas, where Senator Ted Cruz is ahead of Democrat Representative Colin Allred by only 4 points in Texas. I think Ted Cruz will pull that out. Everybody talks about how Texas is becoming purple. Texas is becoming purple, and the Texas we're gonna turn Texas blue, and then we have an election, and it doesn't happen. A lot of people, but they put a lot of money into it, and I will say they're coming after Ted Cruz with everything they got, but I don't think they're going to catch him. By comparison, Trump in the state of Texas is ahead of Kamala Harris by 7 points. They were going to go after Rick Scott in Florida, but he's got a 9-point lead over his Democrat opponent. So I think we're going to take back the Senate. It feels that way to me. Time for the news now at 6:32.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now, rescue efforts underway in Teller County, Colorado, after an accident in a tourist mine where visitors pay to go inside. Here's Alex Stone.
One person was killed and others injured when there was an accident with an elevator that brings tourists 1,000 feet down into the tourist gold mine. And now with that elevator inoperable, Teller County Sheriff Jason Mikesell says others who were in the mine are stuck and they're working on getting them out.
Actually, they're in a shaft at the bottom. There's a tour that goes on at the 1,000-foot level where they show them how mining was done.
He says those dozen people are safe at the bottom of the mine, but they can't get out. Mine rescue teams are now en route.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says authorities are engaged in post-Hurricane Milton operations across the state.
We've got a lot of rescue craft operational. Hundreds of rescuers are engaged in over 125 missions in 26 counties. Some of that's in conjunction with the local law enforcement and fire and other first responders.
At least 12 dead in Florida. And here in Tennessee, recovery efforts continue after Hurricane Helene. Governor Lee today announcing a new $100 million emergency loan program for affected counties to make repairs, $65 million to help crews clear dangerous debris, and then the remaining $35 million will go to restore drinking water and wastewater infrastructure in these counties. These counties are also getting a sales tax break. And money news, Michelle Franzen.
Stocks tumbled today after the latest economic reports painted a mixed picture of the U.S. economy, with inflation cooling, but likely not enough to support another large cut to interest rates. The Dow losing 58 points, the S&P 12 and the Nasdaq down 10 points. Seaports in Florida remain closed following Hurricane Milton's landfall late last night, adding another potential delay in the supply chain as businesses recover from Hurricane Helene less than 3 weeks ago. The average rate on a 30-year mortgage in the U.S. edged up to 6.32% this week, a sharp increase from last week's 6.12%, the spike putting even more pressure on home buyers as prices remain high. Tesla will hold a live event tomorrow titled We Robot, where the company will unveil their Cybercab. The fully autonomous vehicle will collect passengers and drive them to their destinations.
That's the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News. All right, got a crash now 65 southbound right before 440. And east of there, you've got 24 and 40 there where they merge. It's pretty tight right now for folks trying to go east on 40 from 24. And then northbound 65 to get downtown, that starts a little brake tapping going on starting about Berry Hill. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, folks, did you know that gold is near its all-time high? It's going up, up, up. It's up today about $20. Silver, very high in the same time period. Meanwhile, the U.S. dollar has lost 25% of its value since 2020. Government-induced inflation stealing your wealth, and it doesn't seem that Washington, D.C. has any plans to stop it. But gold and other precious metals can be a great shield against that inflation theft. Oh, it's election year, and yeah, the politicians will promise you that they're going to rein in their spending, but do you really believe them? Have they ever been able to? Well, that's why no matter who's in office, gold protects you from the D.C. spending sprees. Go where you get that. Where do you go to get that protection? Well, reach out to my friends Kyle and Hannah at Nashville Gold & Coin. They will take great care of you and keep you very well informed on all precious metals opportunities. So act now and get your shield against out-of-control government spending. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com and set up your appointment today.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Murphy in the middle of downtown Franklin, Tennessee. We've talked so much about Savory Spice. I thought, why not show you the place? So let's go on in and see what's popping at Savory Spice. As I've always said, you will smell the spices even before you walk in. I can smell them right here in the doorway. Come on in, and let's introduce you to the one and only Holly, who is the owner and proprietor of Savory Spice. Say hey, Holly.
Hello, everyone.
Now, enough about Holly. Let's talk about spicy and easy products like the incredible taco soup, which, as I said, you put this in a crock pot, you put all the ingredients that it tells you to buy right there, you put the spices in, and it's so easy. So if you don't know what you're doing around the kitchen, it's a perfect way to find your way around the kitchen, as is the Mediterranean dill risotto. Now, for the holidays, pumpkin pie spice. What doesn't it have, Holly?
Pumpkin.
Doesn't have any pumpkin in it. That's a fun fact for all of you kids out there. Now, if you stop by Savory Spice, either in the Franklin location or at L&L Market, you can get yourself a sample of the dill dip, which is my absolute favorite. Just tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Savory Spice with purchase now. So come by Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and come see Holly and the entire crew at Savory Spice.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
It's actually 40 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We're going to go all the way up until 7 o'clock with the drive, and then we do the news, and then you get Mark Levin. I mean, the hits just keep on coming here on Super Talk 99.7. Got some more stuff to share with you as we try to wrap up here. Tim Walz has gone absolutely silent on this question, because he said I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. We need a national popular vote. And this was the statement that he made out on the campaign trail. And then Kamala Harris's campaign, his campaign as well, I suppose, sent out word that, it is not the position of the campaign. We believe in the Electoral College. And he's now gone quiet. So here's the reason why we do. I mean, look, we do need an electoral college. Every once in a while you hear people say, well, we need to do the popular vote. The popular vote is what we need, and that's very short-sighted because, it's entirely possible to win the popular vote and lose the electoral college. And why do we have an electoral college? So that the major population center out there on the east and the west coast don't run roughshod over the more rural parts of the country. It's a thing to balance out the interest of the minority. Or in many places, you have many rural people who live in rural red states who would be absolutely blown out if they did that. And it's very short-term thinking to say we don't need an electoral college. And anyway, a lot of time you hear Democrats talk about that. Walz was one of them. The Harris campaign has sent the word that, in fact, we need the Electoral College. We need it. So sometimes it goes the other way, where, we feel like we have the popular vote and they have the Electoral College. So I'm glad that, the Harris campaign making one move that I can agree with. I love this story from the Washington Times. I'm going to read a lot of it because I think it tells you what's really going on in this country. And it tells the story of Eloy Alberto Zayas Berrier. Was part of the Mariel boat lift in 1980 that brought 125,000 Cubans to the United States. And because of that, he's been in legal limbo ever since. He does not have U.S. citizenship, can't qualify. Cuba has refused to take him back. He's stuck on parole. He remains in the U.S. with only the barest legal protections and cannot obtain a green card. He is decidedly not a U.S. citizen. But guess what? The last election, in 2016, rather, he showed up in North Carolina, registered that day, claimed to be a citizen, and cast a ballot, all on the same day. Now, he's not a citizen. He just said he was. And they can't stop you and question you about it, or they couldn't at the time in North Carolina. Mr. Zayas says he was accompanied by a friend who was planning to vote. He said the poll worker encouraged him to sign up and vote. Just yesterday, or a couple days ago, we had a story of a guy that's going to a grocery store and finding someone who can help him vote, even though he's not a legal citizen. Yeah, come back here with your friends, all your friends who want to vote, even if they're not legal citizens, and I'll help you fill out the paperwork. We'll make it happen. It's happening. It's happening. To hear fact checkers, Mr. Zayas is rarer than a lightning strike. They say non-citizens don't vote in U.S. elections because they have too much to lose, but that's not true. Former President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson disagree. In a high-profile meeting last month, the two men found common ground in declaring non-citizen voting a serious threat to ballot integrity. Mr. Johnson, in particular, said illegal immigrants allowed into the U.S. by President Biden's border chaos are showing up at government offices to sign up for benefits and services. They are also being encouraged to vote. Neither side can say with certainty whether that is common or rare, but a series of criminal cases in North Carolina shows the problem is there. Federal prosecutors in the state brought charges against 37 non-citizens who voted in 2016. Some of them, such as Mr. Zayas, voted in many more elections. Others were one-time voters who showed up, registered, and cast ballots on the same days. Some trends emerged from the data. The non-citizen votes were of various races and ethnicities. 7 were listed as Asian, 8 as black, 10 as Hispanic, 2 as white. 1 was multiracial, 5 was listed as other, and 3 showed no data. 1 incongruously listed as an American Indian or Alaska Native. The 37 migrants cast a total of at least 99 ballots in records dating back to the 1996 election. Most voted only in federal election years, although 1 voted in municipal elections as well. Now, you say 37 and 99 ballots in records. That's not enough to change an election. Can be. And here's the thing. We don't know if this is the tip of the iceberg. Are these the people getting caught? Or are there much larger numbers of people? We just don't know. The registered Democrats outnumbered the Republicans by a 3-to-1 ratio. How about that? Partisan politics seem to play a role in registration. The assistant U.S. attorney who handled many of the cases told a judge that one official accepted a non-citizen's application once it became clear he planned to vote for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. Liberal-leaning civil rights groups dismiss worries about non-citizen voting as erroneous and misguided. The Brennan Center says non-citizens are not voting in federal or state elections. The Law and Public Policy Institute pointed to its survey of 42 jurisdictions from the 2016 elections and found that officials referred just 30 cases of suspected non-citizen voting for investigation. Senator Morales Doyle, Brennan's director, Sean Morales Doyle, Brennan's director of voting rights, said non-citizens have no incentives to vote. He said a criminal record resulting from illegal voting could disqualify them from citizenship. And election officials conduct regular maintenance of these voter lists. In fact, they are required by federal law. Well, none of those deterrents seem to stop Juan Francisco Landeros Mireles. He joined a line of people at a food pantry one day and ended up registering to vote. He cast ballots in 2012 and 2016. He came from Mexico decades ago, is illiterate in English, so someone else filled out the form and had him sign it. Mr. Todd said he handled a half dozen non-citizen voting cases, and the story is usually the same. It seems that the North Carolina Board of Elections, sometimes their volunteer staffers aren't aware. And here's the thing, if folks show up and they say they want to vote, and they say, well, and they say, they're asked, are you a citizen? All you have to do is say yes, and they cannot deny you. Even in Tennessee, this can happen. So, I fear that, we're going to see a problem larger than we have seen in a long time, because here's the thing. Hard to figure out. I mean, we're talking about cases from 2012 and 2016 in 2024. Takes that long to figure it out. And a lot of people skate. A lot of people skate through the system. And it does happen. How much does it happen is an unknowable quantity. It's an unknowable number. But I suspect it's worse than we know and we can prove. And if it happens on this election day, the real problem with saying we think there was some voter fraud here is from the time you cast your ballot and the votes are counted and you raise the objection, you got to be able to prove your case essentially before January 6th. From election day to January 6th is not a lot of time to build a complicated legal case. And so, people say, well, they brought case after case. Yeah, they were ill-formed cases. They didn't have time to properly research them because the window is too narrow. It's hard to prove this stuff and to get the data and to get the testimony. And if the other side drags their feet on things, it can be almost impossible to get the data that you need to prove the cases. That's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just very hard to prove in the time that you have allowed to prove it. And once you get past January 6th, Congress has got to certify the election, and then it's too late. So I got to tell you, I think it's a lot bigger problem than we know. So we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens as we get closer. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's the spooky season, but don't be tricked. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your Rude Pro partner. They will treat your family. Get it? Busy Bee has 2 contests for you to enter during the month of October. Think you have the scariest furnace? Tag Busy Bee with your scary furnace picture on any of the social media platforms for a chance to win a date night on them, 2 Preds tickets, and a dinner for 2. Winner announced November 1st. How about a Beehive membership? All you have to do is carve a pumpkin of Buzz the Bee, their mascot, then post and tag Busy Bee on a social media platform. Any of them. As a Beehive member, you'll receive 3 annual tune-ups, one for cooling, one for heating, one for plumbing, 10% discount on all repairs, priority front-of-the-line service, $100 annual accrued replacement credit with a $1,000 max, no overtime or holiday fees, all for as little as $99. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee HVAC, your Rude Pro partner, 775-7833, or visit busybehvac.com.